And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. This week is Thanksgiving week, so of course for Black Friday we'll be off. So we got your Monday roundtable. John, Marlon, myself, and of course Mike Smith, who's been on here several times. Former retired detective who's now living in South Carolina, who's enjoyed his time in retirement. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the morale of the NYPD. What's really going on in the NYPD? Are cops actually happy under the actual mayor, Eric Adams? Let's remind everyone and remind ourselves that Zohran Mamdani is not actually the mayor yet. He's the mayor-elect. So thanks to the chat. I see our friends and listeners are already here jumping in. We appreciate it. Hope everyone is getting ready and geared up for Thanksgiving. John, let's jump right into it, brother.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us this morning. Those of you on Instagram, I just want to remind you, if you comment, we can't see it. So if you want to jump over to get into the side of the chat, go over to YouTube at thefinestunfiltered.com, get in the chat. We could bring up your comments, questions, and whatever you got to say. But if you're on Instagram, we can't see what you're saying. So, yeah, I think we're watching a lot of the news cycle's insane. And we went from the last 3 years of talking about the NYPD exodus under Eric Adams, who said it wasn't a big deal. It was exodus story after exodus story. We talked about how the Detective Bureau in particular was down almost 2,000 detectives, and it's still going. And there's another 1,500 that are up for retirement in this coming year. So, I mean, just a complete depletion of the Detective Bureau, complete depletion of patrol. And then we watch conservative media outlets sit there and paint that the election of Zohran Mamdani was going to cause a mass exodus. And Zohran Mamdani did, in fact, get elected. The exodus that was occurring under Adams is continuing to stay at the same exact pace, over 300 officers per month, which is the entirety of a precinct, 77 precincts in New York City. And we're losing that at a month. That's about how many people are in there a month. And now Jessica Tisch has stated she's going to stay on. And now the news media, all the conservative talking heads, all of the shill paid propagandists that use their police career to mouthpiece for the left are saying, no, everything's fine. NYPD saved now, completely out of the news. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what the morale looks like in the NYPD. Mike Smith wanted to join us. He wants to talk about exactly what's going on inside of Manhattan South Detective Bureau, so you can understand why detectives are leaving there. And whatever happens in Manhattan South, it's really just a microcosm of what's happening throughout the entire job. So, Marlon, what's up, brother?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Morning chat. Who we have here so far? I see you, Hassan. We have Lily. We have Amazing Ant. Good to see you, Amazing Ant. Yeah, Mikey G. I hope you guys all had a great weekend. It's good to have Mike back on the show again. We haven't seen him in a while here. Yeah, a lot to discuss today about what's going on in New York City and as it pertains to morale in the NYPD, and a couple of events over the weekend that were crazy in Queens. But like Sal likes to say, SummerSlam is over. So the media is now on to Survivor Series, and we're being fed the next narrative. And being told that once again to believe in something. To not believe what our eyes have seen, and to only, believe what the narrative we're being told by both the media and politicians. So, but yeah, like I said, we got a lot to talk about here.
So what do you got, Mike? Tell everybody who you are first off, in case they don't know you, when you're retired, and and what are your thoughts on NYPD morale?
And I retired in this past January out of the 5th Squad, Detective Bureau Manhattan South. The best detective bureau to work for, was the best until the ugly takeover of Chief Levon Holly, who was straight trash. But we'll get into that later. When you guys talk about the narrative and what the media wants you guys to believe, that has absolutely nothing to do with why anybody's leaving this job right now. I think we could all agree that they're all leaving because of guys like Levon Holly, the weak, terrible, just horrible leadership that these guys have. Like I posted something the other day, just as simple as squad vacation picks right before the holidays. Usually when you're picking in a detective squad, there's different teams, different days off, different bosses, and each one of those guys will get their own folder. For you to like knock it all and make it one folder right before the holidays is like, another FU to the guys that are really breaking their ass working for you all day long, getting their balls broken, getting their overtime restricted, getting forced to do garbage all day. That's why guys and girls are leaving this job. Doesn't matter who the mayor is, man. Like we could all, it's funny when I watch you guys talk about that, like everybody's petrified who the mayor is going to be. It doesn't matter, man. It matters who's running the show for the men and women of the NYPD.
Well, that's the bottom line, right? We speak about this often on the network, that despite who the mayor is, even going back to I think it was last week or the week before, I did an episode. Ron was busy. I did an episode with Rob on the executive perspective. We talked about surviving Zoran Mamdani. I said the reality is it's not surviving Zoran, it's surviving the NYPD leadership. So we say it often, and the Post didn't want to quote us on it, and people are shying away from it. But it's the internal pressures of the NYPD that cause retention issues, that cause the problem with attrition. It creates the mass exodus, and more importantly, the mental health problem of the NYPD. And that's the internal pressures of the NYPD. Because I talk about morale often, and morale is supposed to be this force that cannot be penetrated, right? If there's issues with salaries, if there's issues going on with the police department, if the morale is strong, it won't penetrate it. But because the morale and the camaraderie is weak because of the NYPD, failed leadership of the NYPD, these outside factors penetrate morale. So morale to me, it's almost like this ball, and if it's strong, these issues won't penetrate it. But if not, that's where we start to feel the issues of the conditions of the prisons. We start to feel these issues of weak leadership because the morale is weak. And where does that come from? It comes from the weak leadership. So it's not surviving Zoran Mamdani or even surviving Eric Adams. It's surviving the weak, failed leadership, the 2- and 3-star chiefs of the NYPD. When we say who's the job's dead, the job sucks, it's the people. It's the people running the job because the failures of their leadership, their self-imaging, their self-promoting, that they're not taking care of the rank and file. That's what leads to the mass exodus. This fear-mongering that if Zoran Mamdani becomes the mayor, that this mass exodus will happen. It already happened. The mass exodus is already here. We've been fed this illusion that if Zoran Mamdani would become the mayor, that the entire police department would just walk out the door. And what do we see? It's anything but that. We actually see people are now vying for the job for police commissioner for Zoran Mamdani. We've actually heard rumors that Jessica Tisch and Zoran Mamdani have been talking for several months, that this is nothing new. So there are other people and there's other NYPD leadership that have fallen just in line and will fall into the policies and the vision of Zoran Mamdani and forget the rank and file. And the rank and file is stuck in a position, well, do I want this job because of the internal pressures or not? So exactly what you're saying, Mike. No one cares who the mayor is. They don't care. They don't care if the mayor is a dog. They don't care if the mayor is a cat. What they care is how they're treating the NYPD so they can do their job and do it appropriately. That's what's strong about morale. And that's why when we got on the job 2004 and 2005 and Marlon, I think got on 2007, at the time we had amazing leaders. We had people on the job that cared about you. Were they tough with you? Probably tougher then than they are now. But they actually cared about you, and that's the difference. They showed care and compassion.
You know what's funny too, bro? Like you talk about, the guys and girls that are leaving. So like, what you're getting now in the squad is kind of scary. It's not replacing the tenured and the small guys and girls we had once before. So like, I had somebody in the city yesterday. So I called the squad and I'm like, hey, who's working the day tour? Dude, I had names thrown at me that I was like, well, wait a minute. Those guys are in the detective squad now. Like they're just feeding people in to kind of Band-Aid the loss that we have. But that will never work because these guys aren't as sharp and as smart. And it's not a knock because you guys know, like that takes a certain someone to be in a detective squad. Every unit in the NYPD is for a certain person. It takes a certain person to do certain things. You just can't throw people in to fill the void. So, I have this girl in her 30s who's my assistant principal walking around Soho, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait till the 4 to 12 comes in, because I actually know those guys and those are legit dudes. Let them take care of you if God forbid you need anything. But it's scary, man. They're just throwing people in to fill that gap, and it's not going to work. And that's why morale is down, because when you got a shit team and a good team, you know how it is, bro. The good team's going to want nothing to do with that shit team, and it's just going to ruin the whole dynamic of a detective squad.
Yeah, but I think, I think we should hone in a little bit on like what's like really happening. Obviously, when you look at the job, there's people in positions that have no business being there. They're going to obviously have to fill the detective bureau with cops, and currently we're seeing that the cops that they're hiring, the overwhelming majority, have no business being there. They're out of shape. They're not ready for the job. They're either middle-aged traffic agents coming. They come in docile. They come in timid. They come in. They're looking for a nice paycheck. They're looking for a nice retirement package. They're looking for health care. They're not actually looking to be police officers. They're not looking to go out and get bad guys. They're not looking to go out and keep anybody safe. They're not even looking to answer the 911 jobs or take the reports. And I think, what are you going to do? Like, you're left with a lot of talentless individuals. Now, there's that to say that everybody's there? No. I'm sure right now I could walk into every precinct and find competent people to do this job. Competent people that care about policing, that are competent in their report writing, competent in arresting, competent in everything. And they're young and they could grow into good detectives and they could be trained. But those people, they're few and far between. And if they don't fit the diversity agenda, they're not getting picked. So, the morale at that point, it's like there's no pathway for success. We've been talking about this the entire Adams administration. And that was the difference between Bill de Blasio administration and Eric Adams administration, is you could actually, through hard work, get promoted under Bill de Blasio. You could actually do that. Eric Adams, it doesn't matter. It's your skin color. It's your sexual preference. It's your religion. It's who you know. It has nothing to do with your competency level. It has nothing to do with your work ethic. But like things, and then you go on to the little things. So, all right, I'm a detective. I'm third grade detective. I'm never going to make second grade detective. I'm a great cop. I'm the best cop in my command. I'm never even going to make detective. I'm never even going to get to a unit, right? Okay, whatever. I do my job. I keep my head down. It pays the bills. I feed my family. I don't care. I'm going to focus on all the other things. I'm going to be the best at what I could be. Then you take my vacation picks away from me. So for those of you that don't know, you get 5 weeks vacation, which is, for corporate people in the corporate world, they're like, wow, it's great. Yeah, it's great. But you have every weekend off. You have every holiday off. Cops do not. They cannot, even if they have weekends off, they cannot bank on going away on a weekend. They cannot bank on being with their family on a holiday. Those 5 weeks are the only 5 weeks where they could plan their weekends the entire year.
True.
So now you got a guy with 18, 19, 20, 22 years, 23 years, and they're up there and they've put in all the sweat equity. And hey, you know what? I like to take off Thanksgiving because I like my sister comes in or whatever it is. I like to go Christmas shopping with my wife. I like to take that week off. And now you're being told, well, you know what? You got to pick as a whole. And this is not just happening in Manhattan South, Mike. That's from everywhere. They've made everyone in every bureau just pick with each thing. So they diminish the amount of people that could take off holidays. So you got guys with 22, 23 years on that can't get Thanksgiving, that can't get Christmas week off. I don't know a lot of people that take off New Year's, but like if you want to at 22 years, you should be able to. And then even the quality picks in the summer where you want to go away the last weekend in summer, or you want to be away for the 4th of July, whatever your thing is, it's being taken away from you. And then you're like, is it really worth it for me to stay? I don't even know. Like, I'm getting abused in my 22nd and my 23rd year. So it's all those like little things that are just adding up. And those have greatly increased under Eric Adams. And as the people continue to leave, 300 plus police officers a month leaving is unsustainable. As this continues to increase, these things are going to continue to increase. less people getting quality vacation picks, less people getting time off, everybody being ordered overtime, and an inordinate amount of overtime. They just had that article about the $1.1 billion in overtime. I'm like, I'm not shocked. Nobody should be shocked by any of this. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You just lose it. You can't sustain the police department at losing 300 plus cops a month. And that's what's happening right now. And the media is telling you it's fine because Jessica Tisch is the police commissioner. I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah. I'm going to say, as we talked about many times, like a lot of the problems go back to the fact that so many veterans have left and the job is so shorthanded that like the problems trickle down, and they have a shortage of manpower, and now they're going to try to shift the way they the way vacations are allotted so that they can make up for that, so they could cover for that shortage of manpower. And I still don't believe the job thinks this is an issue. I think first of all, I think they don't respect the rank of detectives as they should. Okay, they think you could literally make a detective out of anyone, and you can make a detective by having them, from a manual, and they don't respect the fact that a lot of what you learn in becoming a detective is from both your experience and from the veterans that were there before you to pass on their knowledge. And I think they don't respect this because, as we talk about many times here, the job thinks they could use technocratic measures like AI and all that stuff to kind of supervise the cops and to kind of make up for the lack of experience and make up for inadequate cops that they now are bringing onto the job. So even if they put someone into the squad who shouldn't be there, they believe that they can manage it and they can make that person a detective. And I don't know how this problem is going to end, but I think it's actually going to get worse because, as we've spoken about, guys don't want to. What this doesn't incentivize the senior personnel to stay on the job, and if everyone's leaving the door at 20, we're leaving even less experience on the job. So this problem is just going to get worse as time moves on.
That's a great point. I think when we talk about morale, I think morale is, in my opinion, it has taken the biggest hit when it comes to the detectives. So Crazy 10-7 makes a great comment here, and I think that this kind of alludes to how the union plays a role in morale. So Crazy 10-7 says DEA, which is Detectives Endowment Association, is desperate for dues. They're about 2,500 down. So their manpower has taken a major hit. A major hit. So when it comes to unions, the unions rely on dues, right? Each person that pays dues on a biweekly basis, that goes to the actual union, which supports their real estate, supports the actual union itself. And so the reality is we could blame the unions also on morale, especially Scott Moreau with the Detectives Endowment Association, because we're all watching numerous people get promoted or get to the rank of detective that have no business being a detective. Now, I agree with John. There are plenty of outliers on the job. There are plenty of outliers, but the majority and the whole of rank and file do not belong in the Detective Bureau. The Detective Bureau should be this specialized unit with people that want to do investigations, that people that have a creative and critical mind and think on that apparatus, and not just police officers that are actual cops. But we don't see any pushback with Scott Moreau when we've seen promotions and potential pay-for-play promotions and people that are getting promoted that don't belong there. We don't see any pushback on the union. Why? Because they want the union dues. So when we see an article in the Times, and Marlon, we laughed about it, where Scott Moreau said he had a line to Eric Adams at any time, and that's the difference in what he fears and his concerns are for Zohran Mamdani becoming the mayor. Will he have that same phone access? Because Scott Monroe, and just like these other unions, they want the manpower. So they don't care who gets promoted. They don't care if people are getting promoted that don't belong there. They don't care who's getting grade. They want the dues. They want the dues because it's about the union members. It's about the union trustees and the board succeeding. And if they're not getting the dues, the unions will fail. And it's already epic fail for the rank and file, but I'm talking about for them themselves to support their real estate, to support these nice dinners, to support all these functions. They need union dues. So to me, the unions play a major role in morale, and there's no pushback. We see plenty of people that probably belong to administrative their entire career. They should have been working the 124 room. Anybody wants to know the 124 room? That's administrative stuff. They get promoted to detective. Do we see pushback from Scott Monroe? Absolutely not, because they want the dues.
Want to go, Mike? So you want to talk about what's happening in Manhattan South right now, particularly with because people on here, they're like, oh, the mayor does matter. I agree, the mayor matters, whether they're hands off or they're hands on in the police department. Eric Adams has been completely hands on in the New York City Police Department. He appoints the police commissioner. He appointed a record-breaking 4, never been seen of, so never heard of. And then he's appointed a lot of people that have no business being in the rank of chief and the rank of inspector, and he's giving them vital positions in the New York City Police Department. And honestly, when you go back to these guys and girls, when they were cops, when they were sergeants, when they were lieutenants, if you had one of them as a group, as if you were a lieutenant and you had 2 or 3 sergeants that fell under you, they would be number 4 as your sergeant. If you went back to when you were a sergeant and they were one of your cops, they would be the worst cop in the precinct. And yet Eric Adams, because, hey, you know what? I grew up with this guy, I like this guy. He's just appointing people to places they have no business in. So, like, what's happening particularly in Manhattan South, Mike, that's causing a big rift? Why is it the morale inside the Detective Bureau there down?
The South was always known to have a well-respected chief running the show. Like, for years, that was the spot. Nobody left the South ever. It was gentleman's work. It was hard work. It was a place where cops went to get promoted, and they got a guy there for the last few years, Levon Holly, who was just, he's a straight piece of shit to everybody in the NYPD. Anybody that works in that borough, it doesn't matter how hard you work, he does not care. He's all about himself. He tries to rule that bureau and make everybody afraid of him. He tries to play that tough guy routine with everybody. If he finds out you have some type of family incident, like if you can't do a certain tour or you need a day off for family, he will purposely make sure that you have to work that. Like, he's not about trying to help you out in any way. He wants to see you hurt. And that's what he's doing to everybody that's in that borough right now. We just had a guy who was the CO of my squad, one of the most well-liked guys in the NYPD, man. Just bounced him to ECT. No reason. No unions can interact, nothing. Nobody cares. Nobody questions it. They just let this guy do what he wants, do as he pleases. The crazy part is when you're running around this powerful, to say, and you don't give a shit about your guys and the girls that you work for, how does the DA not step in and kind of question, like, holy shit, this is what's going on in the South? The South was never a spot where anyone complained. Now you have guys that are making the calls, like saying, could we get this guy out of here? Could we get a change here? If there was a change in the South, I don't think you would see a lot of people leaving. But being this guy, like, he just turned the 2-star position down because it didn't work for him, which kept him in the South even longer. I mean, he has his guys, his XO, this guy D.I. Kelly. He's got a sergeant who, dude, I'm ashamed of this guy because he was a detective with me. This guy, Armando Berrios, straight up like killing cops for minor incidents. And dude, like, the holidays are coming up, and one of the biggest things with us is suicides, right? Like, it's a big thing. You're going to kill these guys on top of their workload right now, on top of their tour changes, on top of everything you're doing to them, and hit them with the minor bullshit too. Like, come on, man. Like, at some point, something's got to give. And that's why you're seeing these guys fly out of the South. There's guys that would never leave that are leaving to try to get in, like, these small Staten Island spots just to ride their time out. Or there's guys just walking over to the pension center leaving. My old CO was the guy Tang Luo. Listen, he was a dope, but he was legitimately bullied out of that CO spot and forced to retire from Levon Holly. You know, he didn't deserve that. The guy was a dope, but he didn't deserve to get forced out of the job and sent to the pension center. You know, he's got a lawsuit going. I think you guys had a lawyer on there a few weeks ago that had a bunch of lawsuits that were like going on against this guy Holly too. But it's a nightmare, man. Half the stuff you hear you wouldn't believe. It's a straight nightmare with him. He'll come to the office in a tracksuit with his shield hanging out. Like, come on, bro. And then he'll break your balls for wearing a quarter sweater. So it's like, come on. It's crazy.
Marlon, come on, bro. Come on.
Marlon's always good for it, brother. Let's not break the trend, right, Marlon?
It has to happen at least one episode. Yeah. No, listen, I'm looking up this guy's record on the NYPD Online, and he was never a detective himself, you know?
No, and he was in charge of major case at one point, and that was a dud too. He threw a dud over there.
Yeah. See, I never understand why the job, like, you know, we have plenty of detectives on the job who, you know, moved on to the supervisory ranks. I never understand why the job gets guys who've never had that experience puts them in charge of certain units, you know. But I think that when I'm hearing this, this reminds me a lot about we had Chief Faison on Sal's show about a week ago, and he said something that stuck with me, you know. Now, when he said it, I kind of realized why the guys in his unit didn't like him. Okay. He said that basically, like, when he got there, like he changed things so that only supervisors could speak to the FAA, which is something that wasn't the case before. Because again, aviation kind of operates differently from the other from the job, because they kind of work, you know, they kind of get supervised by the FAA too, you know. So, and they have a certain level of knowledge that you know, it's different when a precinct boss comes in there and applies the precinct mentality to it. So when I hear about what's going on in the DB, I think again of a guy who didn't have experience being a detective himself, and then coming in there and kind of like just like throwing things out of whack, you know. And I just think it's a major problem for the job that they always put guys into leadership positions where they have no actual experience being like investigators or detectives. I think those units will be much better served if you get a guy who's been a detective, who's been an investigator, who's been down that path to now be in charge of the unit.
I mean, forget about being a detective. This guy wasn't even a cop.
No,
he has 17 arrests. He has 17 arrests, and he's
more than Eric Adams.
Manhattan South Detective Bureau. Well, I mean, it's double Eric Adams, to be fair. I mean, so compared to Eric Adams, he's a superstar. But compared to a rookie patrol cop, I mean, this is the real problem, though. When you look at this, like, this dude should not. Like, I'm sorry, I get it. You know, people say arrests don't matter. This matters, man. This This shows work ethic. This shows that he just didn't even want to engage in the core mission of policing. He has 17 arrests, and he's leading detectives in Manhattan South. I'm sorry, like you're a bum. You have no business being a chief. You have no business leading a precinct. You have no business being a commanding officer or anything. You should go back to the police academy and try over. Let's start over. Now Eric's doing it. What the hell is going on here?
I don't know. I think you muted me. I had it going.
Yeah. I muted.
I'm gonna blame it on you. But to me, this goes back to the debate and the argument that we've had within the police department, especially police commissioner. Should the police commissioner have had her boots on the ground to be in that position? Some say no, some say yes. So I think the same thing goes in the detective bureau. Should someone who's in a position of authority and leadership in the detective bureau, a specialty like that, have had done investigations themselves to understand it, to actually be more an effective leader? And there could be arguments to that. And I've seen it, you know, even before the police department, in the Marine Corps, I've seen plenty of times where you have officers in charge of a unit and they never actually had that position, but they were actually effective because they utilized their leadership that was already there, and they utilized it and respected them to do the job. And they said, I understand that this is not my specifics and this is not my trade, but I'm here to lead. And they utilized their leadership to guide. But as Marlon said earlier, we don't have that veteran apparatus in the job anymore to pass the torch. A good majority of the job, close to 50%, has less than 5 years on the job. So even if Holly didn't have the resume and he didn't have the credibility to be in a position of leadership in the detective bureau, if we had that veteran apparatus and he was in a position of leadership, he could use that veteran apparatus to run that unit and to learn from them. But we don't have that. So I think that goes back to the argument and the debate. Should the person have walked in those shoes to be in a position of leadership, especially when it comes to Jessica Tisch? There's a debate. Should she be a police commissioner? Should the police commissioner be homegrown? Should it be someone that was actually a police officer within the NYPD? Should that person, to be in a position of leadership, have walked in those shoes? And I think overall, and I don't say never, but most, to be in a position of leadership, to be effective, should have had to do that job themselves.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at her, I mean, I think that's, you know, I think when she stepped in at the height of the corruption scandal in the NYPD, I actually liked the appointment because here I see, all right, here's a billionaire. She's not going to be afraid of losing her job. She doesn't even take a salary. So she could actually step in and clean up the corruption in the NYPD, and she could tell Eric Adams to go F himself, right? But she didn't do any of that. Like, she basically just played ball with Eric Adams. You know, she cleaned it up surface level. She cleaned it up in the media. She cleaned it up how it looks on the surface to the uninformed public, right? To the low information public. So she did a good job at that. But now going forward, should she be the police commissioner? I don't think so. She doesn't understand anything about even being a working class New Yorker. Never mind, how is she going to really fix the internal problems that are happening in the NYPD? Now, I'm not saying she's a terrible person, and I'm not saying that her chief of staff is a terrible person, but like, they don't understand the inner workings of the NYPD. You just don't. And how could you when you've never done it? How could Levon Holly tell you anything when he's really never done it? I mean, like, I'm sorry. Like, what does he know about sitting down in the district attorney's office? What does he know about putting pen to paper? What does he know about any of this?
You know, he can't read ECMS either, bro. He has a guy that works for him that's in charge of reading ECMS cases because he does not know how to use the system.
I mean, could you imagine that, dude? EMS is a very user-friendly system. At first, it was a little complicated, right? But I think they worked out those kinks, and you could literally not even have any training and go on ECMS and learn how to work it, right? And you could come in, not have ever been a detective as a boss, and have your guys show you how to use ECMS. And that would probably take about 30 minutes for you to review their case notes, their fives, whatever it is, how you upload this, how you upload that. Here you have a guy in charge of this. It's the main central program for detectives. It's basically where they show all their work, how they put together their case files, how they put together their investigation. So you could piece back how they got probable cause. And this is all Rosario material. This is all stuff used to build the case internally inside of the NYPD and present to the district attorney's office, right? That's what ECMS is. And here, the guy in charge of it, you just heard right here, doesn't even know how to read it or understand how to use it or understand how it works. So how is he going to be able to effectively manage workflow, see if the workflow is in fact correct? He has to lean on someone that understands it better than him. Now I get it, but how long should that happen for? 4 months? 1 month? Couple of weeks? Shouldn't be as long as he's been in the detective bureau. At some point, you should be proficient in a program that could take literally. I could put my daughters in junior high school in front of it. They'll figure it out about an hour without me telling them anything.
You know, you mentioned Rosario material too, and that's a big thing. These guys, specifically him, he was big for it too. You know, they can't even understand how to read your case, but yet they want you to put stuff in it, right? So they want you to put shit in it that you don't want to put in it because it's not going to make or break it. You know, they just want to micromanage and have their little input dropped into your case so they could feel good about it and be like, oh yeah, this is what I did. But yet they wouldn't write it themselves. So a lot of times cops with time on, like, us detectives that had some time on, we'd be like, no, we're not putting that in our case because it's Rosario material, number one, and it's not going to make or break this case. And that was a big thing going down the road with us for a while, was this guy wanting you to put X, Y, and Z in when it had nothing to do with what was going on in your investigation, just so that he could have a say and say, oh yeah, this is what I told him to do in this case. But they forget, when it comes down to court hearings and all that stuff, they're going to want to know where you got that information from. And unfortunately, if these young guys are dumb enough to listen to this and write it themselves, you're liable for what you wrote in your case now.
I just want to say before you go, I think that there's a big difference. I think it's a different animal. I think the reason why I brought up Jessica Tisch being the police commissioner in comparison to Holly, I think it's two different animals. So I think that ultimately, if you're going to be a commissioner that has tenure, I think you should have had to walk in those shoes to be some form of rank and file. Do I think you have to make it the chief? No. But I think at some point in your career, you should have had to have done some form of law enforcement, right? And had to face danger. And John, you make that great point, right? Could she have been there just to, for several months or for a period to break things up and to alleviate the corruption and the many other issues going on with the police department? Sure. But for the long tenure of it, I think it should be someone that actually was in law enforcement themselves. Not necessarily that they have to be from the NYPD. I think it is preferably better because they understand the culture. But when we talk about Holly, I personally, I don't think that you have had to be a detective to lead the detective bureau. I think you have had to be a good cop because there's many administrative factors in the detective bureau. And once you're in leadership, it's more of an administrative role. Mike, you have to admit that when you're a detective, you're doing the investigations, and even the sergeant, if the sergeant is the commanding officer of a detective bureau or a detective squad, particularly detective squad, it's more of an administrative role. And so if they have good working detectives and they understand that and they learn from those detectives the administrative factors and even how to oversee investigations, I think they can be effective. So for that, I would have no problem if he was just a regular cop who came in and learned ECMS and learned what the caseload is and respected the detectives and had veteran detectives to guide him through that. I would have no issue with it.
Look, we used to have COs all the time that we respected, that if they felt something needed to be in our stuff, we would talk about it. It would be, okay, we'll talk about it. And if we all don't agree, it ain't going. Now it's like, this better be in there by, tomorrow, or you're going to get 36 emails from the zone captain and they're going to threaten you with CDs and all. It's like the Wild West over there when it comes to the shit that they're doing. But just look at this guy, man. He just don't belong. Like, where is Joe Kenny? Joe Kenny is the worst chief of detectives, in my opinion, in the history of the NYPD. And people could argue that it was Pulaski. Not a shot. Joe Kenny is garbage. Dude, the guy is a puppet. He's MIA when all this shit's going on. Like, aren't you the chief of the greatest detectives in the world? Like, where are you? How do you let this guy be in charge of Detective Bureau Manhattan South? That's it.
What do you think the biggest knock on Kenny is amongst the detectives? Like what's his knock? Like like I know Pulaski was heavy-handed, he was handing out CDs left and right, but he did build, he there's a lot of good work that he did, and I think
He
a
was
lot
a
of
smart dude, man. He was
credited him
smart
for
guy.
his work. They just didn't like his style of going about his work. But like what do you think it is with Kenny? Like what's it there?
I just think they all feel he is nowhere to be found when you need him. Like, we had Essick right before him, who was very good. Chief Essick was a good man, fair, very, very into the promotions. He was actually trying to fight to have the promotions for detectives live on the internet, so you could see like who's really up for it and stop the bullshit of people saying, "Yeah, you're on the list," just to shut you up. Like, "Yeah, you're on the list." Everybody heard that before when you're a detective. "Yeah, we got you on the list, bud. Like, you're next up." But he wanted to stop that. But the unions actually were fighting against him. I got pinned by him in 2022. So in his office after the pinning ceremony, he was like, "Does anybody have any questions?" And he's like, "I know what the first question is going to be, promotions." So he went about it and told us what his idea was, why it wasn't working, and why they were against it. But he was a big advocate for getting hardworking detectives promoted. Kenny is just, dude, he's just invisible. Where is it? I put his picture on the back of a milk carton all the time, and I tweet it out because that's exactly how everybody feels. It's like, this guy's missing in action. Where is he?
Yeah, I think a lot of the issues that goes back to the fact that Eric Adams still exerts a lot of control over the NYPD, and his guys who are connected to him. Like, I'm sure Levon Holly is connected to Madry and the same circle of Phil Banks, Eric Adams associates, and because of that, Chief Kenny isn't going to say anything, and Scott Monroe, who says he can pick up the phone and make a phone call to Eric Adams whenever he wants, is still not going to say anything because, again, I don't know what he's calling Eric Adams to do if to talk about if he can't get anything done, but he wants to retain that ability, so he's not going to press him for any changes that would be that would help detectives out. And I also think that like Eric spoke about last go around, Holly, sure, I'm gonna agree with him that you don't necessarily have to be a detective, but you have to have been a hardworking cop to have got to be in charge of a unit of. Traditionally, the guys who are detectives are like the guys who were, back when they were cops or whichever units they were. These were the guys who were spending days in the precinct.
Yeah.
They're always the hard workers and the go getters. So if you're gonna put a guy in charge of them, he should have at least been that type of person when he was a cop himself. And I think that the fact that Holly wasn't just goes to show you, how he doesn't belong there.
I think that's a great point. By the way, I got to apologize for cutting you off, Marlon. Someone made a funny comment here that they said every show I cut you off. But no, I think that's what it comes down to, right? What makes someone, when it comes to leadership, what makes them build morale by their instant presence. And detectives, especially the Detective Bureau, they work so hard, and especially now with the limited manpower, they're working around the clock, and they're overextended, and their caseload sometimes is really not manageable. It's by having someone in leadership that actually went through a grind themselves, that is going to have an understanding, when you're backed up on your caseload, and could be supportive of you, especially when it comes to CompStat. That's the role of the commanding officer at CompStat for the detective squad, is to support them and say, hey, yes, maybe certain things weren't done in a particular case, or why a case has taken some time is because they understand the caseload that you have, especially if you're in a busy precinct. These cases just never stop. Or if you're working in the Bram, right, in comparison to the detective squad, sometimes just the caseload is so minimal and so minuscule. So, and if anybody wants to know what the Bram is, right, it's the burglary, robbery, apprehension module in the detective squad. And they all work so hard. So I think ultimately, Marlon, you nailed it. And that's what it is. Someone that went through the grind, that worked hard, right? What makes someone a good boss in anti-crime, or a good crime boss? Someone that works hard, has good work ethic. And that's really what it comes down to. And obviously, he's someone that just doesn't have a good work ethic. And I don't think it has anything to do with him being black. I don't even think it's DEI. I think it's potentially, I would make my assumption, and it's what Marlon said, I'm sure there's some type of connection to Eric Adams and this whole Crumbs crew. I would make the assumption on that. Just as, when we talk about Kaz Daughtry. Kaz Daughtry wasn't a DEI appointment. He was an appointment because of his connections to Eric Adams. Mostly the failures on the leadership we see right now is the connections to Eric Adams. So does the mayor matter? In a sense, yes, because it does breed weak leadership. And this leadership that we have right now is not supportive of rank and file and supportive of specialized units, especially detectives. It's supportive of themselves.
Has anybody seen Kaz Daughtry lately? I haven't seen him.
Nah, he's probably job hunting like Eric Adams on taxpayer dime. He's probably out doing interviews and all that. He's done. He doesn't make any videos anymore. It's not fun. I was hoping we get some charades for the last couple of months, but it was over. Listen, it is what it is. There's another perfect example though, right? Like Kaz Daughtry had no business being in the position he was in. He was never a sergeant. He was never a lieutenant. He had zero leadership ability, and they put him in charge of 3-star chiefs. I mean, it's a joke. And then, like, look, people are asking about Faison too. Here he is. He's got 23 total arrests. Another chief. I mean, do we see a pattern here? Like, most of the chiefs in the NYPD they don't even have 50 arrests to their name. You know, and does it matter, like, your arrest? No, but again, your competency level and your work ethic matters, and I believe that this shows your work ethic and your competency level. I think that anyone that becomes a chief, the first thing you should do is go speak to their sergeant, who they were when they were rookies, because that's who they'll ultimately be at the end of their career. Whoever you were as a rookie, you're the same guy, dude. Now, you might be a lot smarter, you might know the job a lot different, but your work ethic, your drive for the job, your passion to do police work, you're not just gonna miraculously get that. You're not. And then, who were you when you were a sergeant? Now we see your leadership ability. Same boss you were as a sergeant, that's the same boss you're gonna be when you were a chief, right? Like, and there's guys that have that ability, and there's people that don't. I think that what we see, there's a huge pattern, and honestly, I think it does have a lot to do with the fact they're black. I do, because I know I could name white guys off the top of my head that never went past captain, that were great cops, unbelievable sergeants, unbelievable lieutenants, great captains, and they never went anywhere because they were white. I can name a ton of dudes like that, or they made it to DI or whatever it was, or they gave up after years and years of being a duty captain and they got shelved. So I think right now, I think when you look at Eric Adams, when you look at his appointments, when you look at his department, I mean, there was a race-centric base around the entire department of, like, we're going to promote blacks. And that was happening, to be fair, under Bill de Blasio, and even prior to Bill de Blasio. But it increased significantly under Eric Adams. We only went back to the old white guy after the corruption was so thick that he was facing 40 years in jail, and so were the rest of the scales that he put in place. That was the only reason we went back to the old white guy, and now we went even past the old white guy, and now we're with the billionaire heiress. Mike, Chief Marino was on here. He asked, who do you believe should be chief of detectives if you could appoint?
I think right now the only person right now I think would be Mike Baldessano. I mean, that's the only name that I would feel comfortable saying. And plus, we worked with him for a long time, so we know what he's about. That's the guy, man. That's definitely the guy. And they tried to screw him too. They threw him in some shitty position for a little bit and let him sit down. Yeah. Like, what is that, bro? The guy was in the Detective Bureau for years.
Because he's too pale, he's too male, he's too stale. That's what it was. And he knew too much. He was competent. He knew the job. Right. And we don't want people like that. We want to bring in people that are going to do whatever we say.
That's the guy, though. I think he would. But again, it has to. Who's the PC? And are they going to let him be the chief of detectives? Are they going to be Mike Baldessano? Are they just going to be like, do what we say? That's the problem.
I just want to say, I think that I think, John, you're right. I agree with you. Is there a huge DEI component to the job? Absolutely. Were white alpha males and white alpha females pushed out? No doubt about it, especially white alpha males. And that stems from from the administration under former Mayor Bill de Blasio and extends into Eric Adams. But when I talk about Kaz Daughtry and Holly, them particularly, I don't think it's because they happen to be black. I believe it's because of their connections to Eric Adams. Being black happens to be a caveat. Is there another segment to that where there are alpha white males pushed out in the job and replaced by black and Asian, particularly Southwestern Asian right now, Southeastern Asian? Yes, there's definitely that DI component. I think it's split. There are some that are pushed because of DI and some pushed because of their connection to Eric Adams. No doubt about it. But Mike, I just want to ask you that, with that question, what was it about, and I agree, what is it about Baldessano that makes him that you believe he would be the guy? What are the traits that you're looking for? Right? What are you looking for? Not a specific person, but what are you looking for that's, hey, and would you be okay with someone that did not work in the Detective Bureau to lead the Detective Bureau?
I mean, like, Mike had qualities because he was there for a long time and he knew how it worked. He was fair. He treated everybody the right way. And he didn't, if there was a problem, he never ripped you apart, but, you'd get a talking to when things got resolved. The workflow was better. He just knew it. I mean, you can put somebody that hasn't been there in charge if they're willing to sit back and kind of let the detectives lead them and learn a little bit. I'm not saying you got to kiss all of our asses, but just sit back and kind of see how it works. See how it's supposed to be. I'll say it back to Holly again. We're already micromanaged as it is. So for this guy to come in and add more micromanaging on top of micromanaging is just, that's not the way to lead a detective squad. That's not how to do it. But you can put somebody there that hasn't been there if they're willing to just learn a little. You got to be willing to learn a little.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that Holly. So when Eric Adams came in, he came in with a mentality. Him and his cronies came in with a mentality that the NYPD for generations was white, and now we're in charge. So now it's our turn. So we're gonna elevate our people to these positions, and it doesn't matter if our people are unqualified. It's our turn now because the guys before us had their turn. And that one of the biggest problems with the NYPD now is that I've said it before. It's devolved into a tribalist department with, whoever's in charge is gonna put up their people, people that look like them, and that is a major problem. And again, it's not a coincidence that these are all being pushed under a Democrat administrations, because I think Democrats love tribalism. They love collective identity, because then everybody's fighting for their own collective and for limited resources. So now instead, so this is a way of breaking up the unity of the NYPD. Whereas before we were all blue. Now you're part of this fraternal organization. I'm part of this one. You're part of this one, and we're all fighting to get those resources. So now that Mamdani's coming in, I expect a lot of chiefs are going to be brown guys now. And again, it doesn't matter what they did as cops, okay? Because it's their turn. And this is a major problem with the NYPD. And this is how you get unqualified guys as chiefs. This is in fact, this is how you accelerate a problem that was already there, in my opinion, because I think we still had chiefs that really shouldn't have been there. But now we're seeing it to an even greater extent with guys like Faison and Ali, who, I'm sorry, Faison sounded very qualified to be a pilot in aviation, but I mean, facts are facts. You got enough college. I could go find a rookie in some precinct right now who has more college than you. So I'm sorry, but you should, in order to get up that high, you should have, your record as a cop should reflect, you being a hard worker and you being a go-getter, and therefore you're able to speak on certain issues when you get to that rank.
No, I mean, and I get a lot of shit from black cops and Hispanic cops when I bring up the whole diversity shit, and I'm like, look, I got no problem when you stick up for the people that look like you, that believe what you believe. I have no problem, and I understand it, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm standing up for if a white mayor said what Eric Adams said here, there would be riots. There would literally be riots. He would have been asked to step down. John Shell and who was the other guy, the chief of detectives before Kenny, they stood there like two idiots. I'm sorry, they stood there like two idiots. He was literally talking about them. And look at all the people that are standing around Eric Adams. I mean, what happened? Oh, indictment, had to resign for an impending indictment, right? Like, it's a joke, dude. It's like there is a huge, like, there has been a phasing out of white males in the New York City Police Department for the last 12 years, like literally written into policy. Here's the mayor in New York City. You have all these organizations. First, he went after Christians with the mandate. He went directly after Christians. He did not go after the Jews. He did not go after the Muslims. I don't care what anybody's got to tell me about that. He went directly after Christians. And when you look at who disproportionately were affected. Who disproportionately got denied religious accommodations? It was white male Christians, and that's without a doubt. Did other people get denied? Absolutely, but disproportionately it was white male Christians. And when we start to talk about the promotions, who was affected? Disproportionately white male Christians, right? But there's one guy standing right behind him that had no problem with what he said. Listen to what Eric Adams says here. This is what his entire administration was.
About Freddie Ferrer, who's here in the office. I think about Congressman Espaillat, first Dominican to be a congressman from the city, coming here not understanding English, just sitting in the classroom and understanding that this is the land of opportunity. I think about Eric Gonzalez, the first Hispanic to become a district attorney in the largest county in Queens. Ani Segura, Ruben Diaz Jr. and Sr. I think about what this moment means, living out the promise that I made when I ran for office. I think about Sheena Wright, the first African-American to be the first deputy mayor. Think about Maria Torres Springer, the first Filipino-American to be deputy mayor. I think about Mira Joshi, the first Indian-American to be deputy mayor. Commissioner Kim, first Korean-American. I think about Laura Kavanaugh, the first woman to head the fire department. I think about Melina, the first Hispanic to run the Department of Correction, and in spite of what people are tempted to say, he's doing a goddamn good job. I think about every mother who's right now is cleaning someone's office, cleaning someone's home, who's cleaning the streets, and hoping one day that this dyslexic child that they have can grow up to be the mayor of the city of New York. And one day, this young man of Puerto Rican ancestry can go from watching his dad be a transit cop to being the top cop in the city of New York. And sometime, Anna, when I appointed you to be the first Dominican and to be deputy mayor, and you look around this city and who we are, Assemblywoman Raj Kumar, the first Indian American to be an Assemblywoman. This is what Ingrid and I talked about many years ago when we started this journey. We cannot do it alone. If I'm the only person of color, of diversity in the room, then it's not the right room. This is an amazing moment for not only the Spanish-speaking community, this is an amazing moment for our entire city and country of what we are doing. And when we appointed Keyshawn Sue to be the first woman to be the police commissioner in the city of New York, we started on a journey when the police department was moving in the wrong direction in the area of law enforcement. Morale was down. Police officers was not being paid the wages they deserved. We were placing them on the front line. We started the year losing.
So you heard him there. That's all he. And then he goes on further to say the NYPD has a great crime fighting profile, but it has an image problem, right? And what was that image? If you were a white male, you didn't represent New York City and you didn't represent the police department. And how did all this work out? A year later, I mean, corruption scandal after corruption scandal. Morale was horrendous at the time he gave that speech. It is significantly down from that time. The amount of officers that were leaving at that time was insane, and it's only increased since that time. So I mean, like, race has a big part of this. Race has been a big part of this administration. Huge.
He didn't get a chance to mention that he was about to be the first indicted mayor also. This is the first of everything. Who was that idiot in the back? I forgot his name already. I forgot he was the chief of department, smiling. Yeah, you're the only white guy there that they're talking about. He's sitting there smiling. Ooh, yeah, they're talking about you, John Shell. You were the old male pale stale, sitting there smiling. What a dope.
Well, all I saw was his chin hanging behind Eric Adams.
Yeah. Hey, I see a comment in there from Jay Ramming who says that this isn't about DEI or any political agenda from the Democrats. It's more about a takeover affecting every race except for white individuals. It's bigger than that, Jay Ramming. It's 100% DEI and a political agenda. Okay, because listen, you saw that video just now. Eric Adams told you himself. Okay, all right. It's not just about like natural shifts in demographics, okay? Because the NYPD's majority, it's been a while since we looked at the numbers, but when we did look at it, it's almost majority Hispanic, in terms of which the highest percentage of ethnicity, okay? The fact that the issue is that Eric Adams came in with that agenda, okay? Specifically came in with that agenda, and he told you right there in that speech, and you saw it from the promotions and the guys that he put in charge, and the guys who, regardless of their numerous scandals, still got promoted upwards. Okay, and even Tish has been unable to remove some of these guys, like Stephenson. Okay, so it's not simply like a shift in like natural demographics and the leadership of a department. Okay, it's much more deliberate, and that's the problem.
I think that's a key point. That's a flashpoint that you said, Marlon, is that it's deliberate. And my question always was for Eric Adams, like, when is it diverse enough? And what we learned by pushing diversity, especially when it comes to Eric Adams, in order to push diversity, which means pushing more black and brown, we actually have to discriminate against another race. And that's the part that people, I think, have overlooked, or either they forget or want to pretend it's not there. So in order to diversify in the manner that Eric Adams intended to do, and which he succeeded, that means that, and I agree with John, white Christian, I always say white alpha males had to be discriminated against in order to accomplish this mission. Because he said right there, if you walk into a room and you're the only one of color, that's the wrong room. But what if you walk into a room and everyone in that room is all black and brown and there's no whites? Is that room now appropriate? Is that a diverse room? So
no, that's fine. That's fine. That's okay.
Right, because there's no such thing as reverse discrimination, right, John? I mean, I thought it was just discrimination, but apparently you can't reverse it the other way around. That would be okay. Is that what he's saying? Like, when is it diversified enough? If the entire room is black and brown and John Shell is the only white guy, is that okay?
It's crazy when they talk like that, because out here, like Horry County specifically, their cops, bro, they're diversified, but like they also have a standard they have to be held at. In my school, I work with a Horry County cop too, and it's just me and her in the school. She's gearing up for in March. She's got to take her annual physical, so she's got to do a certain amount of push-ups, a certain amount of sit-ups. She got to run a mile, but it keeps all these men and women here like ready to go. Where when you come to our job and you see what we're looking like all they care about is diversifying it. They don't care if you're fat. They don't care if you're frail and small, but they do care if you're big and strong. And that's when they pinpoint you and put you to the ringer.
Modern Samurai has the best quote here: horrible cop, horrible boss, horrible mayor. See the pattern? I mean, it's not hard. Like it's not. And again, people are pointing out Vinny Variano. Vinny Variano had 10 times the amount of arrests of the people we just showed you that achieved.
Yeah, Vinny
like,
wasn't.
You know what I
Vinny
mean? Like
we
just told you that he wasn't like a proactive crime guy. That was all he was telling you that. But he was still a competent individual. He still went to work with a smile on his face. He wasn't a miserable and did nothing and pushed back and fought the system. Like that, he's still engaged, is what I'm saying. He just wasn't an anti-crime guy. That's what he was saying.
anytime we had a job that hit the fan, Vinny's car was always there, bro. Every time.
Exactly. Like, you don't have to have been a crime guy to be a good cop. Like, you don't have to have been a crime guy to be competent. Like, you know what I mean? It just might not be your thing. Answering jobs, the way you treat people, the way you deal with your peers, the way you deal with your supervisors, the way you deal with complainants, the way you deal with perps, that is who you are. Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter what you do on the job. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people that got promoted under Eric Adams are horrible at dealing with complainants. They're horrible amongst their peers. They're horrible amongst their subordinates. They're horrible amongst their supervisors. And they just kept failing forward. They just kept failing forward the entire time. And like, just that little where you see the glimpse of their work ethics. Come on, you have 15 collars and you're a chief. What do you know about being a basic level cop? You don't know anything. 15 misdemeanors, two violations. Come on. I mean, it's an absolute joke. The other knock that's been going on, and I think what's happened since Tish took over, is the extreme disciplinary actions that have been taken. Cops went, they used to get, traditionally, if you got in trouble for something that was considered pretty bad, cops would get 30 in a year. They would get 30 vacation days taken away from them, and they'd be on probation for a year. And that means that you could be fired for anything within that year, right? So you'd go back into a probationary stance. Getting 30 vacation days taken away from you as a cop is a significant amount of money. I mean, it's probably upwards of $40,000 at this point, maybe a little bit more. So what we're seeing under Jessica Tish is that 30 in a year has become 60 in a year. So it's about a $60,000 punishment. And then we're also seeing people being forced to vest, people forced to retire, people being really forced out of the job. And then let's not forget people being terminated for things that they wouldn't have gotten terminated for in the past. Have you heard anything about that, Mike? Like, as far as like the like, and not to expose anybody here, but anything like that? Jessica Tish is way too heavy-handed, and that is causing guys to leave the job as well.
It is, and you hear it starting from the way you have these admin lieutenants coming down on cops and ICOs coming down on cops. Like I was saying earlier, I got an admin lieutenant who's in the South who was detectives with us, and he's hammering guys he was detectives with because he's petrified of the people above him. And to me, that's crazy. Like, if you're facing all this stuff right now as a cop, the last thing these guys need is to get hit for the minor stuff. And all that minor shit adds up down the road, and they wind up getting a big hit. And what do new cops get now? It's 10 days right off the bat? Is that what it is? 10 vacation days they start out with?
Yeah, they start out with 10 vacation days, which is nothing.
Right. So that you're talking, that's a minimum hit is 10 days. And when you bring up the money before, I never even added all that up. Like, could you imagine adding up all the days we lost over the years we worked and what that money was equivalent to? That's crazy.
Think about, at this point, it's like $1,000 a day. So like, think about that. And then as you, whatever rank you are, push it above. I think somebody threw a comment in here before about something along the lines that Tish did it for free, so did Bloomberg, but nobody knocks Bloomberg, something along those lines. But I think people forget Bloomberg kind of left the police do its thing, let fire do its thing, and never really interfered in any of our stuff. That's a big difference between the two. Bloomberg never interfered in any of our stuff as the mayor of New York City. Eric Adams is balls deep in everything we're doing and not giving anybody a shot at anything.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I agree and disagree to a point. And the reason why I say that was Bloomberg, for the most part, he let Ray Kelly run the police department. And if you remember when we had the Sean Bell shooting, Bloomberg did say that the shots were excessive, which caused a rift. But the leadership of the NYPD was much stronger, so there was a lot more support that we could bounce back from it. So there was a time where Bloomberg did kind of step out and have a bit of an anti-police rhetoric when it came down to those shots, and he was kind of siding with Al Sharpton at the time. But the leadership was different.
He called some. I remember that too. Were you with us? Were you with me when we had to sit on that house down in Mariners Harbor One of them lived over.
I sure did. That just to show the comparison. Back then, they left you there. There was no bathroom, no restroom. You were on your own.
But that's why we were sitting on that guy's house. That poor guy, like, he didn't know what was coming to him.
It was a rough time, but it was different, right? Because the morale was strong. You know, I talk about morale being this thing that can't be penetrated because the morale was much stronger. Now, when it comes to Jessica Tisch, I'll say this: nothing has changed. There's still a 3-tiered system. If you're tier 1 and you're part of the, you know, you're a chief, you're taken care of on the job. If you're tier 2 and you have the right connections by nepotism, you get the mitigating factors on the disciplinary matrix. If you're tier 3 in your general population, that's where the arm of discipline comes down on you. Now, I spoke to someone, I'm not going to give their name, that is facing discipline, signed off on their charges, just like administrative charges, just like someone else would. Their discipline was not any worse than anyone else I've seen get 30 or 60 days. But this particular cop signed off on their administrative charges. There was a plea deal for about 70 days, 70 vacation days. And Commissioner Tisch denied it, and she's asking for this cop to vest or retire. And there's other cops with far worse discipline. The problem with this cop is he's general population. He doesn't have those special ties to nepotism. He's not tier 2 or tier 1. Look at Jeffrey Madry. He retired from this job in total bliss. But this particular cop is facing a position right now where he may have to vest and retire because Jessica Tisch has come down on him. But yet, if he had the right connections, I'm sure it would be far different. So there's still a 3 different tiered system within the NYPD. Not much has changed, but if you're general population, she's coming down on you hard. And so we see that her advisors, which are Bratton and former Commissioner Ray Kelly, are really in her ear. And she's coming so hard on discipline. We saw that before with Ray Kelly when he was hard on discipline. The thing is, morale was much stronger. It was a different police department. So with Jessica Tisch, not much has changed.
I don't know who that person is, but if you're listening to this and Jessica Tisch told you to vest, I would run. I would run because you're getting fired. Like, she's going to fire you. Like, that's what it is, you know. Or maybe Scott Monroe could pick up the phone and, you know, he's got a call to Eric Adams. Maybe he could pick, because that's the only way you're getting saved is if you get Adams to tell her no. That's the only way you're getting saved. Yeah, it's a big problem, dude. It's like, that's why people are leaving. They're like, is it worth it for me to stay? Is it really worth it for me to deal with all of this insanity? I mean, even just in the gun violence suppression division, that whole unit. I mean, that's a specialized detective bureau. It's the same thing with the vacation picks. You got guys that would have been, if they would have picked separately instead of with the bureau, they'd be number 1. But now they're like number 10. You know what I mean? And they're like, why am I staying on this job? Like, I could go do something else. Like, what am I doing? Like, it's not really a great quality of life. Everybody's miserable. My bosses suck. I'm never getting promoted. Like, the only thing I have is my time off with my family, and they're taking that stuff. They're taking my picks away from me spending time with my family. So they bounce, you know, and then that's causing overtime to skyrocket. And as much as people like overtime, they like overtime, you know, at their leisure. Not, people don't want to just be ordered overtime on their days off or overtime after work when they got things to do. You know, it's never fun to, you know, you're telling your wife, yeah, we're gonna do this, or your girlfriend or your significant other, and next thing you know, you're like, yeah, sorry, I can't do that. You know, well, what about tomorrow? No, I can't do that either. You know, like, it's never fun to do that for anybody. You know what I mean? Even if you have a really understanding partner, it's not fun to do that to them. You know, and it's not fun for you either, because you're like, oh shit, I wanted to do that. Oh, I wanted to hang out with my friends. Oh, I was really looking forward to doing that. And you don't get a chance to do that. And then eventually people are like, you know what? I'm just going to retire. So the other thing that we noticed is the other day there was a quasi riot outside of a synagogue, like a major synagogue in New York City. And the cops are being blamed for that. The cops are being blamed for the protesters turned rioters blocking the entrance of the synagogue, not allowing Jewish New Yorkers to go in and pray, and keeping them from actually coming out and leaving. Very scary thing. I think, again, we spoke about this before, how the department is so inept at policing protests today, and it's really not their fault. It is the fault of Eric Adams and the protest settlement agreement. It is the fault of the people he put in charge that cannot think outside the box and cannot even work outside of that protest settlement agreement either, and really don't throw that stuff out the window when things hit the fan and people's lives are in danger and the Constitution is really being thrown out the window and shredded. And I just watching the news media beat up the rank and file cops and beat up really Jessica Tisch too, who has went out and apologized, and she deserves it. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it, but what do you guys think about that synagogue where it was? Would that have ever happened in the past? Could you recall a time where the NYPD would let protesters protest directly outside of a church and let them block the entrance and keep, regardless of your faith, Christian, Muslim, I don't care what it is, you believe in Satan? I don't think we would ever seen that in my life. But this has become commonplace today. Like, what do you think about that, Mike? Like, what would that have ever happened when you were a cop?
No, we're giving them way too much leeway on what they're allowed to do. We would have never let anybody get close to any kind of location like that. I don't understand how we let these lunatics come out and do these nonsense protests. You think we would have learned by like 2020 and when all that stuff erupted, and yet we continue to let it happen. We should have put it on lockdown, knocked it out, and ended this madness. And then you want to blame the cops because you have, first of all, I don't even know how many cops were there. It probably wasn't enough to even control what was going on. I don't think you'll ever see enough of us in these spots that are able to control what's going on. And all policies allow it to get to that point. It's not the cops' fault.
Yeah, I don't understand the apology there, because did she apologize to the people on Canal Street who, were trying to go home or go to work when ICE, when ICE came about a month ago? Has she apologized to other city residents for all the protests that have been going on, even before she got there? But I mean, she didn't do anything. I mean, she just kept on the same policies as her predecessors when she got there. So those protests continued. But so what's the point of the apology now? I mean, if she really cared about this, she'd have solved the issue months ago. Okay. But you didn't. And it just keeps escalating with these protesters. Okay. You don't talk about who funds them or the repeat agitators. Do you press the DA's office to do something about the same people who keep showing up on these protests? So what's the point of the apology now? People always talk about like how they talk about how virtuous she is because she's doing this without any salary. And I want to point out for you guys that she doesn't need a salary. Their family are billionaires already. Okay, so if she's in a position where she can influence government policy in the favor of her family's business interests or the associates of her family, the business partners of her family, that's worth a lot more than some pittance salary that, she probably makes more in interest every month than, that salary. So stop. We need to stop thinking of her as being so virtuous because she doesn't take a salary. Okay. There's an agenda at play there. And there's been an agenda at play, from the get-go with these protesters. And she's just furthering that agenda.
Marlon, you're spot on, brother, because I think it's kind of it's short-read and it's not understood that she's really not working for nothing. She's not agitating a salary, but it's all sweat equity, exactly, for the elites and for her family to actually prosper in different ways. So her being the police commissioner is all sweat equity. I agree. She might not see it in the form of a salary, but there is benefit financially for the entire family. There's no doubt about it. So I think that when we talk about the protest at a synagogue, I think it shows that there's a much bigger problem with the NYPD. It's what we talk about. There's definitely a lack of manpower, whether it's actual with presence of police on the street. And there's definitely a lack of manpower when it comes to the detectives, and especially when it comes to intelligence. Now, we have in the city, there's two types of events. You have planned events and unplanned. But if we had the proper manpower, there's no doubt about it that nothing can be orchestrated in today's day without social media. So if we had the right manpower, our intelligence unit would have impeded some type of information through social media that there's a protest or a planned event. I highly doubt that people just got together without communicating on social media to have a protest at a synagogue. The other thing is, we always had a large presence at what we could consider sensitive locations and houses of worship throughout the city. And as John said, doesn't matter if you believe in Satan, if you're Jewish, if it's a mosque, any form of worship, any house of worship was always considered a sensitive location. And if you're working in a particular precinct, to always pay special attention to those locations in your precinct. So this shows there's a bigger problem. One, with the presence, and of course with our intelligence unit, that no one impeded the fact of information that there was going to be a protest, particularly at a synagogue. So this is just a failure altogether. David Sarney, 306, says the HOW car. Yes. HOW stood for House of Worship. Way before even we had these issues right now. When I was on the job early on, and John and Mike and Marlon, when we all came on the job, way before we had these issues that we have right now, every precinct had a HOW car or more than one HOW car, House of Worship, and paid attention to those locations within a particular precinct.
Yeah, no, and again, I think it just shows that it shows a big problem, one, with the incompetence of the administration, but it shows the incompetence of the leadership in the NYPD. So look, whether the protest is planned or not, the NYPD's response has been totally incompetent the entirety of Eric Adams' administration for planned protest. Now, for unplanned protest, forget about it. It's completely, utterly incompetent. And you saw where they set the barriers up. They set the barriers up right on the side of face up against the synagogue and let protesters right there. There's no reason to let anybody right there. Those barriers should have been across the street. You could protest. You could say whatever the hell you want. You can make whatever anti-Semitic remarks you want. You're going to do it from over there. You're not going to impede people's ability, and you're not going to intimidate people and scare people into going and practicing their faith and walking freely from that. Sorry, you're not doing it. Another thing, it's a huge danger, and they could easily surround that entire synagogue and cause harm to the people inside. And again, I don't care if it's a synagogue. I don't care if it's a church. I don't care if it's a mosque. I don't care if it's the house of Satan. People have the right to practice their religion and freedom in the United States of America. In New York City, you currently don't. Thank Eric Adams, who's winning awards for fighting anti-Semitism, though. The guy's a complete moron, and you have Mastro ripping the NYPD for the bomb's response. What he should be ripping is Eric Adams and Ed Caban for signing off on the protest settlement agreement. And if you go back to Eric Adams' campaign, Eric Adams said he wasn't even going to have cops at protests. There wasn't even to be cops there, right? He was going to have civilians police the protest, right? Because no one knew how to manage the NYPD except for Eric Adams, who, even though when he was a cop, he never actually was a cop. And when he was a supervisor, he never actually supervised any cops, right? So, but he was going to have all of the cops removed from policing protests. And now here we are, and you actually have cops at the protest still because he realized he's a moron. He has no clue what he's talking about. And now what do him and Randy Maestro do? They point fingers to the police department, right? So now Jessica Tisch got to go jump on the sword. Oh, I'm sorry. What are you doing to correct it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She's doing absolutely nothing. And if you remember, Eric Adams cheered on. And I if you go on my X, I dropped a video, I think, yesterday. It was an older video. Eric Adams cheered on him signing that protest settlement agreement. Ed Caban cheered it on. And a week after doing so, he blamed it for why the NYPD looks like they can't control protests, can't keep them in order, and why they're consistently being illegal. The guy's a moron. So I don't blame the rank and file of the NYPD. I blame the leadership. I blame people like Javon Holly. I do. Levon Holly, whatever the hell his name.
Yeah, we get accused on here of complaining, and apparently we don't offer solutions. John showed me a message from some idiot who thought we don't offer solutions. So keep in mind, I was never a boss, right? But even me knows, okay, that shouldn't have happened. Okay, and for those of you, if you guys get put in that situation, I just don't understand why they didn't just put an RMP in front of put a couple of RMPs in front of the area, So it forces the people to move their protests back. Okay, it's just not rocket science. Okay, I don't understand how exactly they put up barriers next to the synagogue, as though it's like they wanted them to be there. Yeah, I I just can't understand how leadership has gotten to such a point that, like, we have multiple ranks that saw that and nobody thought, hey, this is kind of an issue here. You know, why don't we move them across the street?
I mean,
Just
Kaz
doesn't
didn't even
make sense.
fly a drone over the place to see what was going on.
Yeah,
That's crazy to me.
yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. You know, that's a great point, Mike. Where are those drones? Where are
the
those
drones
drones
at,
to
man?
actually see what's going on with the protesters? You know, and I agree. You have a right to free speech, and I don't believe in hate speech. And I'm Jewish myself. I don't care what you say. You want to say anti-Semitic stuff? You're right to your speech. You are privileged, and you have a right to your speech. But this is a sensitive location, house of worship. Most people go there unarmed, and a place where they're rear facing. They're facing either if it's synagogue, they're facing their rabbi. If it's a church, they're facing their priest with their back to the door. These people should be a distance from there. They should feel safe. That's a sense of location, just a position. People are supposed to be comfortable. That's a place that you disarm and you need to be just worship and not worry about your back. There should be a complete distance. You want to film? Fine, film. You want to scream and yell, but do it from a distance. And you're right, Marlon. It shows how far we've tailed back with the leadership and the apparatus and the way that we police. We don't police with masculinity anymore. Put a couple of patrol cars and show a presence. But we see that the leadership has trickled down throughout the entire department, and no one's taken ownership. So again, it doesn't matter if it's a planned event or an unplanned event. There's protest every day in the city, and especially sensitive locations of that. So it shows a failure of manpower. It shows a failure on investigations. It shows a failure on the leadership of the NYPD. And that's why morale is broken, because cops know damn well, why are we not doing this proper? Why are we? And exactly that we said, Mike, years ago, we would have never stood for that. And the reason why we would have been able to take such assertive action, we would have had support from the leadership. So the leadership is an epic fail.
Even though the first response to that job, you got to remember who's showing up, right? Like, you're getting guys that are showing up that probably straight out of the academy, no experience, and tactically aren't sound. And if you want to go into tactics, like, the first thing is that distance, right? You want a good amount of distance protesters to that synagogue. They don't know enough to push them back. They don't know where to set up the barriers. It's just a lack of knowing what to do right now. No one knows what to do.
I mean, like, why couldn't they just make that area a staging ground? It's something as simple as that. I'm completely dumbfounded by the fact that they allowed that to happen.
The problem is, though, and we already talked about it, like, because the problem always goes back to you people are being promoted and put in positions that they shouldn't be in, and I'll say right now, when I look at the sergeants in the NYPD, I'm like, job's done. Because the first thing that should have happened is when you get to that scene and you see there's a ton of people there, let me get a level 1 over here. You call the borough. Yo, I got 300 people here. I need a ton of people here right now. Start sending me calls from all the precincts. You're not asking, like, oh, I don't know if I should call the duty captain. I don't know if I should do this. You're not doing any of that. You're telling them what's happening. You're like, yo, this is what's going on. And when you look at the sergeants today, they're like, should I call the CO? What do you think? They're asking their driver instead of telling the duty captain and telling the borough, yo, we have a problem here right now, and I need people here right now. I need people here right now. Like, and that's the thing that we lost in the NYPD is we lost competence and we lost confidence and we lost people that understand the job, right? You're not going to feel confident enough because like, if you're a competent person, if you're a confident person, if you understand New York City, when you roll up to the synagogue and there's hundreds of people blocking the entrance, you're going to be on the front page of the news and you're going to be the guy left holding the bag. So you're not going to care what rank you are. You're not going to care that your duty captain's a moron and he's a DEI appointee and he doesn't know anything. You're going to tell him, no, I'm getting people here. And you're going to keep going over the radio and you're going to tell your commanding officer what the F you done. And so when the police commissioner calls you later, you could be like, this is what happened. This is what I did. This is where it went bad. Right? Because that's the problem. Like that honestly, when I see anything like that, I always go right back to who's the sergeant, who had patrol. Was it the sergeant? Was it the lieutenant? What'd they do? Right? Because that should have raised red flags right off the bat. That's going to be a big problem. That's going to be all over the paper. You know the environment of New York City right now. Anything related to Jews and Muslims and anti-Jew protest and anti-Muslim protest, you know it's front page of the paper. You know the media is covering this. Where's the care and concern for even just that? Even just the CYA. Like, people aren't even trying to cover their own ass anymore. Never mind protect the public. I mean, so it's a huge fail all around, dude. So like, I don't know where, you know, and Chief Marino says it here. Back in the day, they encouraged the sergeant to take command, call the level 1. If it's not needed, go 98. And you know, and to be fair, like, they demonized that. They didn't want you to call level 1, but I was always with, well, you're not here right now, and I am, so I'm going to make the decision and call the level 1. And, like, that's what you have to understand as a boss. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a low-level boss. So I don't even blame the patrol cops that show up. I blame whoever was in that command that day. What happened? How long did it take to start getting people there? That's the shit I would look at. Because we all know on this, if you let things brew, they're going to get bad. If you nip it in the butt right away, you could have it under control right away.
It's funny because if Chief Marino will agree to this, and you Zol will agree to this, Nancy Sirigliano shows up to that job, and none of this is in the paper like this.
Exactly.
And that's the perfect point you just made, because you know what he's going to do.
Talk about alpha females. There you go. There's no doubt about it. Listen, not only has the leadership been totally ineffective, but they've actually been stripped of their authority. So Jay Ram in 26, and I know exactly who that is. What's up, my brother? Makes a great point here. So I don't believe if you can call level 1 anymore without the duty captain being informed anymore. They have stripped the authority with this protest settlement. The sergeant cannot just call level 1. They actually need the approval of the duty captain before they call level 1. So the ability to actually have leadership has actually been removed within this police department. Eric Adams has gotten nothing but a pass. This protest settlement, let me even just circle back and say, we hear this fear-mongering that SRG is going to be disbanded. It's pretty much been disbanded already, because with this protest settlement, we've tailed back from actually decision-making, where we're not going to actually request SRG to a scene and take full action. Everything has been slowed down, and the authority has been given to the protesters. That's why I said completely we've seen a failure on manpower and investigations, because there is no way, I say right now, there's absolutely no way that this protest actually happened with any information on social media. How did the intelligence unit not intercept this and provide the precinct with information that this needs to be stopped and a planned event? I mean, Marlon, you were in Intel. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You would have gotten information. You would have sent out that intelligence form to the precinct, and you would advise them that they have a planned event at a sensitive location.
Absolutely. There are multiple units in Intel whose job it is to go through social media and to see when these events come through. And then they prepare a report. That report gets sent to up their ranks, and then it gets forwarded to the local FIO, so he knows what's going on. So there's no way that they didn't know about this event. Okay, especially it be happening in Manhattan at a synagogue. Okay, now the other thing I want to say is that we spoke about this many times before, but one of the problems with the job now is that they're centralizing power and decision making at the top and away from the local level. And what really should be happening is that, you know, the decision making should go back to commanding officers, and it should trickle down all the way down to the sector cars. Okay, because, you know, when a sector gets to a scene and he notices like things are going off the chain in his sector, you know, he should be able to like, you know, let the boss know, oh, you know, things are getting crazy here, and decisions keep happening on the local level before you need, because if you're waiting for like some chief or one PP to come in and make a decision about things, then things are gonna go sideways by then, you know. And this is I think this just I'm not going to go into it here, but I think it paves the way for that future of AI and all that they want, where everything is centralized at the top and the decisions are made for you. You just need a drone at the bottom to do the work. And so that's how you get to a situation like this, where nobody in the precinct level is looking at this and like, oh shit, this is a problem here. We need to get these people away from here. They need to wait for some chief or someone from 1PP to come down and tell them, what to do.
But again, it's just common sense isn't really ripe in the NYPD. Again, you're the sergeant on that scene. I don't give a shit what the protest settlement agreement says. Central, notify the duty captain. I need a level 1 over here.
Right. What are they going to do to you? What are they going to do to you?
Right. Like, that's it. I don't use your brain. Ultimately, I'm going to be the idiot. So I'm going to be the guy that's making these decisions. I'm letting everybody know. I don't care. I'm letting everybody know. I need people here. I'm getting people here. What are you going to do? Oh, John called a level 1. And you know what? He didn't really need to. We didn't need the 10 cars. We only needed 6. Oh, okay. Yeah, John, don't call level 1 again. Okay. Guess what happens tomorrow night?
Call another one.
Notify the duty captain. I need a level 1 over here.
Level ones were called constantly back in the
Yeah.
day because it just avoided anything from getting crazy.
I used to love working with Peterson in the 120. Jeff Peterson, if you're watching this, brother, great friend. He was an awesome sergeant, but he was the king of level 1s. I used to always laugh. Sometimes I drive him. Here we go. Here's another level 1. Man, talk about leadership.
But that was the beauty of task force, though.
Yes.
That was the beauty of task force, and that was the good. Like, you actually had people instead of now you have a diminished police department, and every other precinct is short staffed too. Everybody's out doing something, and you're calling a level 1. Is anyone even coming? I don't know. I'm still doing it. But do I get what I need? And someone said, you probably need a level 3 for that. And you're probably right. Because it took too long and it got let out of hand. And dude, we're just an incompetent police department right now. I seen this last night. Furious. This happens the night prior. This is in Melba, Queens, right? Always a quiet area, Queens. This is Vicky Palladino's district. Vicky Palladino puts this out, and she's infuriated. The residents are infuriated, and they have a right to be. And you know who they should be infuriated with? Eric Adams and Jessica Tisch. Because there was a car meetup. Danny, who he's the chief of staff for Bob Holden. He already said Intel was made well aware of this, but it never trickled down to the precinct. I'm going to say that Intel made those notifications.
John, they should be mad at Zohran Mamdani?
Zohran Mamdani won the election. We won't see Zohran Mamdani for 2 more months. So let's not blame Zohran Mamdani for the synagogue. Let's not blame him for this either. This is disgusting. So there's a car meetup. Kids are going crazy. Melba pays for a security guard because they're getting hit with car break-ins, right? It's not like they don't pay enough taxes. They probably pay anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year in taxes, but they don't get a police service, so they have to pay even more money for private security to keep their homes from getting broken into, keep their cars from getting broken into. Best police force in the world, right? Safest city in the world, right, Eric? Right? That's where we're at. And what happens? So the security guard tries to stop them. So you could see, if you look in the background of this photo, you could see the fire. That's the security guard's car, because what they did is they surrounded him. They lit his car on fire. And now they're starting to go on people's homes. So people are coming out of their homes freaking out because they called 911. Oh, and guess what? None of the cops are coming. Why? How many cops were working in the 109 that night? About 6, 7? Right? 6, 7. Where was the sergeant? Was there a level 1 called here? Was there a level 2 called here? Was there a level 3 called here? This isn't a protest. This has nothing to do with the protest settlement agreement. This is an illegal car meetup. This is a Mad Max style takeover. And look what happens. Look what happens. Look at this. The husband and his wife. And honestly, if you live in New York City and this shit happens to you, stay in your house, call 911. And this is every reason why I encourage everybody to get a pistol permit. But unfortunately, in New York City and Eric Adams, the only way you're getting it is if you know someone that knows him, or you pay about $5,000 and get a lawyer to get that for you, because they're intentionally circumventing the Second Amendment and not processing your applications. That's another problem in New York City. But watch what happens here. Watch this.
We'll start hip hop. Michael? GTA 6. GTA 6.
Want to videotape or something like that? Whatever.
30v1. Good. Oh yeah, they want to get it on. Yo, get him off the property. That's all you. Ari, cover your face.
Oh, you want some rope? Yo, chill us something,
Yo, chill.
So Melba voted for Andrew Cuomo, number one, and they voted for Zohran Mamdani, two. And they probably would have voted for Eric Adams, and they didn't vote for Curtis Lewa. So, I mean, you kind of get what you voted for, and this is what Melba voted for. Like, this is what New York City is. This is what it's going to be. Like, this is absolutely infuriating and disgusting. And I think we could all agree that way before this interaction even happened, there should have been 10 cop cars there. And there wasn't, because the response times in New York City are abysmal. And the head count of the NYPD is abysmal, and it's not being reported. But here you see it. You're on your own.
Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts on that video, man? I want to hear from you.
I mean, that's to me, that's justification to put everybody in a body bag that's on your property, especially the way that was going. The sounds in the background were crazy alone, bro. And I don't even know why there's a woman standing outside. That, to me, that's crazy. Get back in the house. Dude, that makes me sick. That's like such like, it makes me so angry to watch this.
Yeah. That's shades.
Let's be honest. This is an
BLM.
all-out riot, brother.
I mean, look at the street, bro.
When you urge 10 or more people and you're now trespassing on people's property and you're intimidating them from coming out of their homes, this is just an outright riot. That's exactly what this is. And the fact that the police were not there to intercept this before it got so big tells you what's going on in this precinct. Tells you what's going on in Queens. We have, in the 116 precinct, we have about 10 police cars that were destroyed. There's no one there. And there's obviously no one here. The manpower is at extreme low. So if anyone believes that there's 34,000 cops, that's an ultimate lie. You hear about how crime is down. Here's the reality. Here's your perception, and here's your reality. This is what's going on in New York City. And if the police do eventually make a response, I don't want to hear about de-escalation. It's already escalated. And now the police are already vulnerable because they have to put themselves in a vulnerable situation and have to use force to get this back to maintain order. This is absolutely insane that people have to live there and deal with this. That's the real New York City, what you're watching here. And guess what? Zohran Mamdani is not the mayor yet. This is under Mayor Eric Adams. Your former cop. Your police response. This is the NYPD. This is New York City. This is terrible.
He's crazy too, because it's like he's almost afraid to swing the bat because he's going to get in trouble. So he takes it. He just takes the hit.
I honestly, I'm shocked the NYPD is not locking him up for medicine right now with the bat. To be honest with you, like, because honestly, who's in more of danger of going to jail there? And in your opinion, a patrol supervisor shows up, cop shows up. Who's more? That guy hits that kid with a bat.
They're gonna take the guy with the bat.
Oh, we know the answer.
Because there's no discretion anymore. Nobody's gonna sit there and take the time to see what actually happened. They're gonna take him away, and that's probably why he didn't swing it.
Yeah, they're gonna blame him for coming outside of his house, even though they were on his property. And so So that those sectors, remember they put the 109 satellite there? Remember they built the satellite command because the police academy got whatever. The police academy got spray painted and all this stuff happened, right? It was all this criminal mischief. So they put the satellite command in the 109. So the 109 supposed to cover, the 109 satellite supposed to cover that sector where that happens. No one ever responds. The first response there is the patrol supervisor, and he's there by himself for like the longest time, dude. And you could see it. I mean, dude, they surrounded the security guard. They lit his car on fire. Then they're continuing to go in a circle. How many 911 calls do you think happened there? 30, 40, 70? And nobody's there. And now this whole interaction happens, and it's like no one's there. Like, you're literally on your own. Like, this is Eric Adams, New York City. And New York City voted for more of it because they're like, oh, let's now Cuomo will be good because he'll just keep it the way Eric Adams had it. It's like, oh, all right. So I guess you like what happened. So Melba, you got what you voted for because you could have had Curtis Lewa, but you didn't want him. You know, and now what do you think? You think Zohan Mamdani gives a shit about public safety? Do you even think he understands it? Do you think Jessica Tisch really understands it? Do you think they really care? You know, and so Raphael's saying, John, desk officers are having a legit panic attack signing off on vouchers. Do you really think they're going to call level ones now? But that's what I said. I said that the problem is you have people in positions that don't belong in the positions, because you could have a moron duty captain that's going to scream at you and yell at you. You could have a moron CO. But when you call a level one, if you have a competent chief in the borough, you're not really worried about it. Because at the end of the day, when all that shit hits the fan, they're going to be like, no, you did the right thing. Screw him. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of him. You know what I mean? Don't worry about it. You did the right thing. You do what you got to do. Because you're empowered by the people that are above you. Might not be the intermediate supervisors, but the people on top of you, you know they have a brain in the head, and you know that they're competent supervisors. And we've even lost that now in the NYPD. So now I get it. People are legit like, it's self-preservation at this point as an NYPD cop. And now your safety, because look, that patrol supervisor could have easily got killed. He was there for himself for a long time by himself.
Yeah. So John referenced that area not voting for Curtis Lewa, right? So back in the last presidential election, that area went 69% for Donald Trump. Okay, 69% for Trump. So it's a fair assumption that there are pretty much law and order people, who want safe, who care about their safety and care about maintaining the quality of their neighborhood, right? In the last mayoral election, they went 59% for Andrew Cuomo. Okay. And we talked about how it was a three-card Mamdani because all three candidates, Cuomo, Adams, and Mamdani, have the same policies. This is happening under Eric Adams right now. We're getting Zohan Mamdani, who's already have his administration is already filled with Eric Adams holdovers. So congratulations to those people. Get used to this because more of it is coming in the next 4 years. Because you didn't vote for Curtis. Okay, we need to start a segment here called "You Should Have Voted for Curtis" because this is going to come up a lot in neighborhoods like this. And keep in mind, the average household in that area is between what is it? Around $1.5 million. So these people are paying a lot of property taxes in there to not get a fully staffed police precinct. Okay, imagine that you're paying all that taxes, and when you call 911, it's gonna take cops a while to show up, if they show up. So congratulations, guys. You fell for the three-card Mamdani, and now you're going to pay the price the next 4 years.
So here's a benchmarker for the indication of what's going on in the state of this city. I mean, often we talk about Times Square, we talk about Central Park, we talk about high crime areas in East New York, South Bronx. But here's an affluent area, and they're affected by this crime also. That shows you the state of the city, of what's going on here. And we often hear about places are over-policed or under-policed. Obviously, it's under-policed. I spoke to John, maybe it was about 2 years ago, John. If you remember, you and I both spoke one of the times that you were traveling to New York. And you said, you know what? I don't see that cadence anymore. And what do we mean by cadence? You would see kind of a rhythm in each precinct that if you spent enough time in a particular area in a neighborhood, maybe in New York, people like to hang out outside. If you're outside, you're having coffee, talking to people, you would see a cadence of police officers. It would be pretty rare that you would be in a neighborhood and not see a presence of police. In some form, you would see a patrol car come by your house, or maybe you would see if you live in a residential area, if you happen to go by a main thoroughfare where there's stores, you would see a cadence of police, and you don't see that cadence of police anymore in New York City because the presence is low. The manpower that we've been given, the numbers of 34,000 are just a complete lie. There's no doubt about it. Because what do you need to have a riot? You need a lack of police presence. So there's no police presence to actually have this riot. And don't get me wrong, this is not just, don't get it wrong, this is not just some unruly crowd. This is an all-out riot. This is a riot. You got a burned car. You got people intimidated in their homes. If that resident, the owner of that home, would have came out with a firearm and shot one of those kids, he would be in jail right now. We would see the effects of Daniel Penny all over again. That's exactly what would have happened. And that's why he was intimidated. He took out a bat to defend his domain, and he was scared to use that bat because he knew the repercussions. And exactly what John said earlier, I agree. The police department would have said, why didn't you just stay in your home? Why should you have to stay in your home? That is your domain. That is your neighborhood. You have a right to protect yourself. You have a right to defend yourself and defend your domain. So if anyone thinks that burglary or trespass is nonviolent, well, here is the scene. Because if when Mayor Zohran Mamdani gets into office, it's going to be the same as you see with Eric Adams, or it would be with Andrew Cuomo. But now it's going to be social workers responding, and now the police have to respond to an incident like this that's already escalated, put themselves in a vulnerable position, and everyone is vulnerable by this. Now, do I blame these people completely for their votes? Not necessarily. They were bamboozled, and they don't know what they don't know. They don't know how important the police presence they had. They don't understand why the city has been safe for so many years that it was under Rudolph Giuliani and under Mayor Bloomberg, because of the strong presence and the masculine police department that we had. And you see the comparison, you see the dichotomy right now, and how when you don't see that police presence, what happens and what can happen. And it's right in front of your face. So the next time that you hear crime is down and how great it is, watch this video and play it to yourself, and you ask yourself those questions.
I mean, dude, look how long this is. Look how long just this video is. They ripped the security guard out of his car, and a 911 call was placed minutes before that. They beat the shit out of him. How they have shit in their car to light this guy's car on fire, and how long does it take to get a car to go on fire? It takes a few minutes. So they must have poured gasoline all over his car, lit it on fire, and now they're just continuing. They have all the streets blocked off, and they're just continuing doing wheelies, not wheelies, but burnouts and all that other stuff, and there's nobody there. I mean, look at this. Now, like, this thing burnt for a while, and again, there's no cops. There's just firemen. And the other thing I made mention to it the other night, like a few weeks ago, I picked my friend up at LaGuardia, and I'm driving Staten Island. I'm driving back to Staten Island, and that we hit a little bit of traffic, and we get there, and there's two cars right on the BQE as like I'm leaving LaGuardia, right? And so I get past them, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, dude, well, I never seen anything like this in my life. There's two burnt out cars right on the BQE. There's no cops. It looks like EMS took the people that were in the thing. There's no fire department. There's no fire truck like blocking it. And the kid I was with is a fire lieutenant, and he's like, dude, we don't wait anymore because we can't wait anymore because sometimes they don't come. Sometimes the cops don't come for hours. So they just left two burnt out cars right in the lane. You know how dangerous that is? And like you could see it here. Like the fire department's there. Where are the cops to keep everybody back? Where are the cops to keep the traffic from driving through? You see people driving through. They're not there. And so when you're sitting there saying 34,000, I mean, it's completely, there's no way in hell that there's 34,000 cops. John Shell's full of shit, right? Because now he's coming out and he's talking about morale, and he's talking about that's the biggest problem and all this other shit. So basically what he's saying is you lied for the last 4 years, and everything that we've been saying on this podcast is true. And you see it clear as day. Like this looks like Mad Max, dude. Honestly, I wouldn't expect. I expect something like this in a third world country. I don't expect this in New York City, especially in a neighborhood where you're paying $1.5 million for the house, $1.5 million for the house. And if your house is $1.5 million in New York City, you're probably paying upwards of $20-something thousand a year in taxes. And we used to have a 3-minute response time in the NYPD. It looks like we have about a 23-minute response time in the NYPD now.
Yeah. So that's the average sold price. The average value is around 3.6 million.
Yeah, so $30,000 a year in taxes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So $30,000 a year in taxes, just to live. And if you put that into perspective, it's about $2,500 a month you're paying in taxes. And when you call 911, this is the response you get. This is the response you get. And look, all these kids are there. Half of these cars were there doing rip outs. Nothing's happening to these kids. They're still taunting the cops. They just beat the shit out of people. Look, they're walking around with their hoods on, with their masks up.
And you know what's going to happen after this podcast? And Mike, you know it damn well. The Detective Bureau is going to get notified about this incident. They're going to do a full investigation. Say, we've arrested some of the perpetrators. Who cares? That's after the fact. That's what's going to happen. I guarantee you after this podcast. What was done to stop this and impede this and prevent this from happening?
And again, that's the whole point with DB. Like you over. Why should they even? This should have been one and done with. This shouldn't have ever been started. There should be no case right now. Everybody should have been in handcuffs. Cops should have been there. And dude, the fact that this happened in that neighborhood specifically is pretty scary because now it could happen anywhere. It could literally happen in any neighborhood right now.
Look, this is the security guard. This is what they do to him. This is how long it is. So they called 911 already, the residents, and now they're just circling them, and then they trap them in, and then look, this is how that car gets put on fire. Insane, man. Completely insane. And then they're beating down this guy.
Is he an armed security guy or we don't know?
I don't know. But either way, you shoot one of these kids in New York City, who's going to jail, them or you? And honestly, right here, if I'm armed right here and there's 3 of you coming after me and my wife's here, I'm shooting all of you. I don't care. I'm shooting all of you. They got weapons. If you can't fear for the safety of your life, but in New York City, in Florida, they're going to come shake your hand, say, sorry, this happened, and make sure you're okay. In New York City, they're going to be putting you in handcuffs, and you're not going to be eligible for the DAT, and they're going to be pressing you harder than they're going to be pressing the guys that attacked you. They're the victims, you know.
Well, I don't mean to attack Intel. I know you worked at Intel, but this just goes to the manpower and lack of investigations. I guarantee there was social media interaction about this meetup. I guarantee it because
they knew it. They knew it. They gave it down. So it's not Intel. What are you going to do? You're at the desk. You get the notification. You give it down to the borough. The borough gives it down to the command. The command gets it. And what? There's 2 calls.
No, I know. But I'm just saying constantly. When I was an anti-crime sergeant and special ops lieutenant, I would constantly work with Intel. They would contact me constantly. Hey, we got this on social media. There's supposed to be some meetup here. We got this on social media. But we just don't have the manpower. You're right. They can't even handle it anyway. But it just shows the bigger problem with the department is every unit is affected. The police is affected. All the specialized units are affected. And for them to tell the police, say that the police department has 34,000 is a complete lie. When I left, September 2022, supposedly was 34,000. I thought it was a lie then. I can't imagine what the numbers are.
Jay Ramming, traffic agents, and school safety. He's counting garbage into those numbers. Can't do that.
Jay Ramming says it's 18,000 on the street. I don't even know if there's that many.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a failure of Intel too, because Intel knew about this. Why didn't a supervisor at Intel call like the borough and let the borough know? You should have been calling everybody and let them know, considering the type of neighborhood we have over there. You know, a lot of times what happens is it's the cop working in that social media unit in Intel. Like we have one called SIU over there that does this, right? So SIU does the report, they send it to his bosses, but it's always up to the SIU detective to notify the local FIO, you know, to send an email to him. And it never rises to the level where the boss over there at Intel calls another boss, calls the CEO and be like, hey, dude, you know, this is get on this. This is going to be an issue. So now it gets sent to the FIO, and if the FIO isn't working, I mean, and he doesn't have adequate personnel there that check his email and are going to do the job when he's not there. Then that email might have been stuck in his mailbox until he gets back on Monday, and then nobody gets notified in the precinct about it.
Special Hagen called it right here, John. The social media unit is too busy monitoring podcasts like this to do their jobs. Yep, you nailed it.
That was my last 2 hits from the social media unit.
I don't know, dude. It's just infuriating to watch because honestly, there's not like hard solutions to stop this. Like, I mean, you just need competent leadership, and it just doesn't happen, you know. And so, if this is happening in an area where the homes are valued at $3 million, I mean, could you imagine what happens in the hood? You know, it's I know, yeah. There's more cops in the hood. Still, look, this is the quality of service you're getting. Like, horrendous, dude, horrendous. It's honestly unforgivable. It really is. And this is Eric Adams. This isn't Zohran Mamdani. And then you continue to vote for the status quo. And I get they don't understand it, but they should understand it. They should start to understand it now, because your $3 million home value isn't going to be $3 million 3 years from now.
Well, that was his idea in the beginning, right? Being we're low on cops, we'll take the cops out of the good neighborhoods, put more in the bad. But bro, you know where the bad is going. They're going right into the neighborhoods where they don't belong now.
Yeah, you don't go to the hood to steal. I mean, it's just that simple. Like, you don't. You know, like I used to like when I worked in the 123, people would talk shit. I'd be like, do you know how many burglary crews I locked up from Brooklyn, from Jersey, from Bed-Stuy? Like, they don't go to the hood to steal, bro. They come here. Like, you know what I mean? And like, you know, and like that's nobody could understand that. Like, how are you guys getting all these burglary calls? I'm like, because they don't go to the projects to commit burglaries, bro. They go to where the houses are for $5 million.
You know what's funny? I remember, Mike, you probably remember the same. I remember collaring for burglary a couple of wanted perps in the 120 precinct. They were wanted for burgs in the 122. And they used to tell me, the perps, when they made the train free in Staten Island, they called it the Freedom Train. They would go on the train and do their burglaries. John, you know what I'm talking about, right? They'd probably go down to Princess Bay, do the burglaries, get back on for free, and ride all day back.
Yeah. How many of these guys that were doing that were from the South Bronx? I bet you a lot of them are from the South Bronx, and they just crossed the bridge over to do it over there. And I'm going to say something else, that you might have gotten a faster response time if this was in the hood. Because what I think is happening now is that like the good precincts with historically lower crime rates are getting shorthanded for the like places like the South Bronx. They figure that I believe the department is figuring that there's a certain level of crime that they could that's tolerable in these good neighborhoods, and because of that, we can shorthand them a little bit and put guys in the South Bronx so that, you know, we don't have so we try and taper the gang violence that's happening there, and because of that, you get incidents like this.
100%. Oh, I agree. Spot on, brother. And you know what, John, what did we say the percentages were that voted for Andrew Cuomo in Staten Island? Staten Island, be prepared, because this is coming to you. You were supposed to vote for Curtis Sliwa, but I think it was 50-something% voted for Andrew Cuomo. That's what you got.
John, it's already happening on Staten Island. It's already happening. There you go. It's already happening.
John, how much voted for Andrew Cuomo on Staten Island? You had the numbers.
Oh man, forget it. It was overwhelming. The whole borough was Staten Island, dude. It was Staten Island. It was Cuomo 1, Mamdani 2, Sliwa 3. I mean, it was literally disgraceful. And Staten Island is the same thing. Like, you're on your own. You're on your own, and you pay all the taxes. You have all the camera lights. You're the one getting your ass with the longest commute in America, getting to work, paying phenomenal taxes to work in New York City and then to live in there. And the service you're getting is disgusting. Those precincts are abandoned. There was I forget who I was talking to the other day. I was talking to a kid, 1992. He was in the 123. It was like the population was like had 300,000 less people in the 123 at that time. And he was, I asked him, I was like, how many cops did you guys have? He's like 150. I'm like, yeah, they have 70. They were literally in and Parkland, and they had double the amount of cops there then than they do now. and there's about 500,000 more people. There's communities all over the place. I mean, and honestly, like you like, so like, you know, I put out something about the synagogue where I said, you know, Tish should just create an apology department. Sorry, we couldn't take that report, but you know, we're down in crime. Sorry, we couldn't do anything for that. She should issue another apology to the people in Melba. But like, at what point do people get disgusted by it and say, like, what are we doing here? And this is going to cause people to move. This is going to cause the entirety of New York City to lose its tax base. And that's what's going to ultimately affect our pensions. And that's why I laugh at all these idiots. Like, what do you care, bro? I got my pension. It's like, dude, first of all, you're a scammer. You scam the city out of whatever X amount of dollars that you did. You probably shouldn't even have the pension you have, but you're not even worried about keeping it. Like, you know what I mean? You're not even worried about keeping your pension at all. Like, what do you think's going to happen when the people in Melba pick up and leave?
Ain't that the truth? Oh, this sounds like a segment from Marlon, man. Talk about real estate.
Well, Staten Island dropped the ball because that's the Trump crew. Whatever he says, they're going to do. And as soon as he went out and pulled the Cuomo bullshit, they all ran and voted for Cuomo.
Yeah. So I made a mistake. That unit was SAU, by the way. It's Special Activities Unit. Anyway, like I said, Intel has units that scour social media for stuff like this. So I don't understand how, like, no action was taken beforehand. And also, I'm gonna say that again, this is gonna happen more often because again, like you have like a lot of youth who are like disaffected right now, and this is like how this is kind of like how they have fun now, you know. And as things get worse and as these youth become more disaffected, they're going to do stuff like this in the good neighborhoods, you know, because it's kind of like a way to be I don't think they have ways to be kind of like what's the word I'm looking at, to be like anti-establishment, you know. And I think going and doing things like this in a great neighborhood like Marlborough is their way of like, you know, sticking their middle finger out at authority, you know. And when we were like a lot of their ages, we had like we had culture back then, and we had avenues to express that anti-authoritarianism without necessarily getting to that extent. And I think because they're so disaffected and we have no culture in this country anymore. It's now like stuff like this is their culture, you know. You're gonna see more of this in great neighborhoods like Marlborough or in great parts of Staten Island.
Yeah, I think that this paints a bigger picture to me. I'm going to assume, and I'm going to make the assumption, because I hear about these mobile field forces on a daily basis, and the cops are being misplaced and displaced. I would say most likely that the reason why the intel cops are not catching this type of information is because they're probably doing some type of mobile field force, because the cops are so short. They're probably working some precinct or standing a pole somewhere, and they're not actually doing their job of intel and actually scrubbing social media. I mean, because I don't know how you don't catch something like this. If you're actually working at Intel doing that, you would catch us. I mean, there is no way that information like this is not blasted out through social media, that Intel is not all over this. But this is coming to a precinct near you. If you're in Staten Island and parts of Queens and even parts of Brooklyn, this is coming to you. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and you could see with that riot, you could see the persons of interest, those subjects that are there. They're not worried about the response. They know there's no cops. You can see there's no urgency. Like, we got to get out of here. You just burned a car. You're on someone's lawn. You've taken over the street, and no one's concerned. Like, hey, we got to get out of here. I mean, there's so many cars that they would have a tough time with egress themselves, and none of them see concern that the cops are going to respond. They know there's no cops. They see it. They know it.
Did you see that last comment, Eric, at the bottom? Did you guys remember the ninja burglar? Were you there for that?
I mean, how many ninja burglars are there right now, dude? How many? Like, the ninja burglar made news because it was a big thing, right? Like, yeah. And even that was like, you know, when you look at that, at least the NYPD like reacted to that. I mean, it really all stemmed from illegal immigration, right? Because it was a crew of Albanians that were like, they owned all these like lawnmower businesses and all this other shit. And they would go up and they knew people's schedules and when they were at work. And they, you know, it was like a fantasy that there was one ninja burglar. It was a whole crew of guys.
Yeah.
They get intel. They wind up calling Homeland. they deport the guys, so it stops, but the guys are back in the country like a week later. Like they just come right back in through the border. And so like that's the other problem too, is like when you look at our immigration policies too. I mean, like not only can't we control the perps that are homegrown, we're bringing in the whole world. It's like wide open. Yeah, do whatever scam you want to run. Go ahead, right for New York City. Because guess what? We're going to give you money. We're going to give you health care. We're going to give you a place to stay. And we're going to protect you when it comes time for your criminal trials when you get caught, if you get caught. But now nobody's getting caught. You know, and so like last thing before we get out of here, look, this is making news now. This is Ellie Bisgard Church. She was Zohran Mamdani's campaign manager. She's going to be Zohran Mamdani's chief of staff currently in his transition team, and she'll probably remain on his, she'll probably remain as his right hand. She's been his right hand. Obviously ran a brilliant campaign for him. So she says this on the news. She starts talking about that the NYPD is only going to go after violent criminals. And, all the MAGA bros, all the conservative voices, they're all going nuts. Oh, wait till you're going to see. Good luck with that. Good luck with this. And I specifically remember talking about this for months at nausea, watching John Shell go on every major media news hit and say, no, you know what we do? We're only going to deal with the most violent felons. We're going to get them deported. That's when we're going to work with ICE, but only after their criminal trial. For months, but probably 2 years, he was going on the news and saying this. Now hear this girl saying the same exact thing, and you're supposed to believe it's the end of the world. You're supposed to believe this is somehow different than what's been happening under Eric Adams and what's been happening under Bill de Blasio for the last 12 years. And this is why I can't stand the social media influencers, and I can't stand the conservative news because they're full of shit. Here's Ellie basically saying the same shit that John Shaw was saying 2 years ago. Wasn't a big deal then, but now it's gonna be bad. It's not bad yet.
We certainly were clear about our disagreements in the room, and the mayor-elect made clear that we uphold sanctuary laws in our city and all immigrants will be safe in our city. We also made very clear that we feel there has been inhumane raids just this week. So it will be a future conversation with the president, but we again grounded in an overall desire and the acknowledgement that our sanctuary city laws allow cooperation in extreme violent felony cases. And that is something where I think we have alignment. We certainly...
I mean, am I off here? Is this not the same shit that Adams and Shell was saying?
Yeah. Shell forgot he was the chief of department. You talked about how morale was great. You talked about that. It wasn't an issue then, but now everything's an issue 3 weeks later. As he's stumbling on his ankle, he's starting to remember and things are starting to come back to him. That way, maybe that wasn't as good. Complete failure. Absolutely. So she talks about extreme felonies. That's what's going on right now. You have illegal military age mailers from Tren de Aragua stemming throughout New York City, creating robberies and all these issues, chaotic. No difference. No difference. We told you, right? 3-card Mamdani. A vote for Cuomo is a vote for Mamdani. A vote for Eric Adams. You're getting all the same thing. Here you are. And can we remind the public that Zohran Mamdani, again, is still not the mayor? I mean, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. Eric Adams has gotten a pass for all these issues. Zohran is not even your mayor yet. We didn't even get to Christmas yet. We got plenty of time to go.
Is he even back in New York? Like, what's the deal with him? Is he even
Eric Adams?
Yeah,
he's still kissing the walls in Jerusalem.
You guys had a video up. I reposted it. It's the best Eric Adams clips I've ever seen in my life. It was the guy from the I think it was like one of the talk shows that night. He like redid the video.
Yep.
Well, that thing.
That was amazing.
That is the best video ever. It just shows what an idiot he is. Like,
dude, he's a comedy show. But listen, I know that his propagandist in chief, Fabian Levy, said he's back in the country. I don't believe that because guess what? If he wasn't back in the country as of yesterday, Jumaane Williams technically was the mayor because he would have had to take over. But I don't know that he is or he isn't. I haven't seen a video. I really haven't paid attention. But I mean, the fact that this guy's been on vacation since he lost the election since he announced he wasn't running, He's been like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm not the mayor no more. And the city's burning. And the media is like literally giving him a free pass. They're giving him the conservative media in New York's non-existent. The Republicans are non-existent because now they're attacking Kathy Hochul and they're not saying a word about Eric Adams. Nobody's bringing up Eric Adams. Oh, and of course, you saw the newspaper, Jessica Tish's newspaper. No one is saying anything about Jessica Tish. It's not her fault. No, it's Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah, she's certainly not going to get criticized for what happened over the weekend in Queens. But the lady that spoke just now, she's in her 20s, no life experience, right? And the reason why she's just repeating the same policy that's going on right now under Eric Adams is because it's all an agenda, and she's been handed a script from above, and it's just her turn to repeat the line. It's just her turn. It's just her turn to cut that wrestling promo, that the writers wrote up for her. So don't expect much different. And we already mentioned how Eric Mamdani's campaign is full of Eric Adams holdovers. So again, it's a new script, same show.
There was another dude. He got arrested yesterday. Black guy. He was walking up, spitting in the faces of white women. He did it to 4 white women. Not a hate crime. He was arrested for spitting, and he was released hours later, right in white women's face. Do you think there would be a difference if it was a white guy who was spitting only black women's face?
Yes.
Like I think the headlines would have ran white supremacist. It would have been a hate crime. He would have got brought up on civil rights charges. And again, I'm gonna say like you could do anything you want to white people in New York City. You could be motivated by hate against white people. You could be motivated by hate against Christians, and you're never getting charged with a hate crime. It's disgusting to me. Honestly, I like New York City's disgusting. Eric Adams disgusting. And again, the people that disgust me the most are the Christians themselves because they say nothing. Cardinal O'Connor, he's not going to say nothing. He's going to have Eric Adams at his prayer breakfast. The Holy Name Society is going to be there. Cops for Christ, and they're going to be sitting there taking pictures with him like an idiot. I'm like, so I saw that. I was like disgusted. I was like, you know what? Maybe everybody's right. Maybe we should all just stop really giving a shit about New York City because it really is just going down the tubes. It really is.
Well, to be fair, John, if you do that next to a synagogue, you're going to get an apology from the PC. So there's an exception. And then right-wing media will actually care about it. But I always thought if you're a perp and you happen to rob somebody, just make sure you yell out it's not a hate crime, because depending on who that is, you're gonna get charged with a hate crime. So it's depending on who it is, it's either the right will talk about it or the left will talk about it. But those same standards don't apply if you're not of a particular if you're not on that progressive pyramid of victimhood and ethnicities or sexual orientations, so
it's a joke. So anything before we get out of here? Anything you want to bring in, Mike, before we get out of here?
I'm just curious if Shell wears his dress blues as pajamas at night when he goes home. Just if you're hearing, John, let me know. Those are your pajamas when you go home at night?
His news hits are hard. They're hard, man. People keep sending them to me. I stopped listening a couple of days ago. I got to go back. I got a bunch in my DMs, but I don't know, man. It's hard. He just repeats the same shit over and over. And I'm like, I can't. I don't even want to listen to this. I think there's a couple that I could play right now, but I'm not really not. I really want to listen to it.
Yeah.
You guys got anything? Marlon, Eric, anything?
No, listen, I think we covered it. The bottom line is that's an all-out riot, and we show that there's a bigger problem in the police department than what meets the eye. It's not just a shortage. It's a shortage that affects the entire police department. Cops are misplaced, they're displaced. We don't have proper investigations by intel, by the detective squad. We don't have a police presence. We don't have that cadence of police cars throughout the city. And the city is being overran right now. The city is being overran. It's weak leadership that affects the morale. It's ultimately an epic fail. And the most important thing that we've pointed out that people have to be mindful of is that Zohran Mamdani is not even the mayor. Eric Adams is still the mayor. These problems have not been rectified. Could they get worse? Maybe. But right now we have to deal with the problem at hand. And the problem at hand is Eric Adams is still your mayor.
Yeah. And for those the 1PP sycophants who are always saying we don't give solutions, here's the solution. Give people in the commands, in the precincts, let them make decisions again. Okay? Let them make decisions and let them be accountable for those decisions and not have to wait for some chief in 1PP who has no knowledge of the neighborhood. He's far removed from patrol in the precincts. Stop waiting on him to make the call. People in the precincts have to be able to make the call and make the decision from what they see on hand before things start going sideways, and you get incidents like what happened in Queens or what happened in Manhattan. From those incidents get out of hand. But thank you guys for joining us, and hope you have a great day, and I'll see the rest of you on Friday.
Well, speaking of NYPD,
and thanks for Mike for joining us today as well.
Nah, thanks, guys.
Speaking of NYPD personnel that's been displaced or misplaced, that's not doing their job all day, Juju is on here. A paid NYPD personnel spend their entire day. Maybe Juju, if you're out there helping out with this riot, maybe there would be a difference with the police presence out there. But it's all right. Spend your entire day in the podcast. We love you. Number one fan. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for being here. You're the man. I always loved working with you in the 120 precinct. Mike was a legit cop, the real deal, real police. Mike, you're welcome here anytime, brother. We love it. I hope you're enjoying retirement. And any words on John Shell?
Oh, yeah, Juju's awesome, man. Juju's good.
Juju's the best.
Listen, let's call him lieutenant, or should we call him author? What should we call him?
I like he's both lieutenant, author, professor. He wears many hats.
Smart guy.
Oh wait, great point, Lily. I'm sorry. No show on Friday because Friday's after Thanksgiving. So thanks for the heads up, Lily.
Yeah. Wednesday we're gonna have Ralph Salento on. With me and Eric, we're gonna do an interview. Thursday we're gonna be down. Greco's gonna be on tomorrow. Executive Perspective will be on Wednesday. Also, 10-4 Tavern will be on tomorrow in the evening. So we're gonna have all those shows, but Thursday, Friday we're going down. We won't be back till the following Monday.
Ralph's a great guy, bro. Ralph's a great guy.
Yeah, that should be a good show. He's got some good
Just
stories.
don't wear a weird colored shirt around him. He'll throw you out.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right, let's get to these super chats.
Let's do it. Coffee and donuts.
Rafael Martinez, thank you, sir. We already went over this. This is where he said the desk officers are having legit panic attacks, signing off on vouchers. Do you really think they're gonna call level ones now? And again, Marlon, I don't think that the job needs to empower sergeants to be sergeants. If you took the damn test, if you want to wear the stripes, if you want to wear this medium shirt, if you want to wear this nice clean white shirt, be a boss. You got to deal with all the shit that comes with it. Like, you know what I mean? Don't expect the job to tell you to do it. It sucks when you have idiots above you. It does. What are you gonna do? Modern Samurai says, "Good morning, gentlemen. Great subject today. Hope everyone is well and looking forward to the holiday season. Stay safe out there. You as well, my friend." Frankie Paliucci says, "Happy Thanksgiving. We deserve proper union representation. The conflict of interest is out of control." You absolutely do. Unfortunately, the unions suck. They really only give a shit about themselves. And watching all the stuff that's coming out from FD unions now about their equipment, they're saying that, that's causing cancer. They just happen. All these cancer rates, it just happen to skyrocket when we force somebody to put something in their body that they didn't want. But hey, we'll blame it on the equipment. But at least they're standing up for their members and they're looking at some of the issues. They're looking at some of the things. There was also they're going nuts about a bunch of boxes left over from 9/11 that their guys had to work around. Guess what? Cops had to work around it. Unions, 9/11 toxins that also cause cancer. Their unions are going insane about it. What are your unions saying? Business as usual, and you're fighting to get your 9/11 cancer to be recognized as such. But don't worry, other guys could get their ankle hurt, not get surgery, and they're out. Another guy could retire 20 years ago and get 3/4 today at the rate he was at today. I mean, absolute joke, absolute joke. It's told you so back when. I told you so back when. Okay, he says, Chief No Cash relied on his ESU guys. Yes, he did. Amazing aunt. Happy Thanksgiving all. Stay safe and God bless. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. Here we go. It's Hassan. Let's go. Should we read this one?
Only if it's $49.99. $19.99.
Yeah.
I don't know. Usually
$19.99. I don't know. Yeah, right. He says, "Good morning, Angry Mo. First class Eric Bootleg Mo. Just kidding. And Marlon, the mute button king. You guys need to have the Mo union. I'll pay $100 dues. Invite me. Got Friday's roundtable. I'll pay $1K. ND, always in love and memory of Derek." So thank you, Hassan. Obviously, this is what happens when you're on midnight. So, like, that's what happens. You can't write.
Hey, Hassan, last time you gave $49.99 for coffee and donuts. I don't know. This time we're gonna have to share. We're gonna have. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's those little things? What's the little donuts called again?
Yeah, the little Entenmann's.
Yeah. That's what we're
Yeah,
getting.
what happened, Hassan? They don't use punctuation on the midnights anymore?
No.
Yeah.
And then
ChatGPT that comment and cleaned it up a little.
Yeah. And then last question for Eric. Eric, why jujitsu and not Krav Maga?
Krav Maga. Krav Maga is good, but I definitely am a firm believer in combat sports. Jiu-jitsu, boxing, judo. Do a combat sport. It's the most live you're gonna get.
All right. So yeah, I guess that's it, everybody. I guess everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. You guys want to go anything before we end? Say anything, Mike? You want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving? Whatever.
Yeah, man, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Be safe out there. Extra safe at the parade. Yeah, that's it, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, I think this is a great one. KB in New York City says we should all take Juju's class. Yes, maybe we'll sign up. You know what? If we're in New York, maybe we can sign up for one of his classes. Juju, I'd love to be one of your students. So, yeah, he's so smart, so intelligent.
You should all read the book that he put together using AI and stealing other people's ideas. Like, you should read that too. It's good. Yeah. Marlon, anything you got before we get out of here?
No. Just happy Thanksgiving, guys, and just be careful out there.
That's right. And we'll pretend we don't know who Juju is.
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably teaching a class right now. Yeah.
Juju, we're gonna invite. I'm gonna formally invite you for a Wednesday so that you could come on here and explain. You know, we could talk about your book. We could talk about your time as a professor. You could give some leadership advice. You know, all that. You could tell everybody why you're obsessed with this podcast. What you actually do at work. You know.
I just want to know, Juju, be honest, right? Since you watch the entire network, which show do you like the best? Which show you spend, you think it really suits you? Well, what show do you use for your classes? Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. As always, thank you, our friends and listeners. We love it. I appreciate it. And Juju, we love you too, man. So keep it up. Thank you. We'll see you Wednesday. Mike, awesome job, brother. Always love having you here, brother. Again, real cop, man. Enjoy your retirement. Next time, get some light so we can see your face. All good.
All right, guys. Finest Unfiltered. We'll be back at you. See you guys later.
Later, man.
All right.
Later.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?